Good morning, my lovelies. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, 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 hello. We do not have a verdict yet for Adam Montgomery. I have my eyes glued to the verdict watch screen. But I figured I would go ahead and start the live stream and we can hang out with each other and maybe watch a few other things and chat while we're waiting so that we are ready to go live whenever they are ready to go live. Because I have a feeling I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I have a feeling that they're going to come back in an hour or so. Maybe it's wishful thinking. I'm willing to believe that I have wishful thinking, but I don't know. It just felt like it feels like I guess they have several charges to go through. They have 4 charges, right, to go through. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. They have 4 charges to go through. Um, it's a tough case because there's no body. They're going by the the key witness is a known liar, a convicted perjurer. But right, we are here to see justice for Harmony. What kind of justice will there be for Harmony? And yeah, I mean, that is what we do want. We want the jurors to do everything in their power to do their due diligence. And it sounds like that's what they're doing, right? For her, for this little girl right here. For this little girl. Um, Good morning, Marie. Good morning, everybody. She is so beautiful. I just love kids. I love, love, love kids. Even after I had kids, I love them even more. I didn't realize how much having kids would have an effect on how much I love kids. I love kids. I just really do. I love kids and old people. There are some exceptions to the old people thing. Some old people can be accepted upon with that. But man, kids, will another notification come up? I don't know. I'm going to keep this live for as long as I can. I'm hoping that there's a verdict, today, but I'm keeping I'm keeping this live for as long as I can today, until we get a verdict, and we're gonna watch some things together. What I have on the screen right here, and I'll keep an eye. That's a lot of kids, Mary Jane Doe. My goodness. You're not really late, Chopper. You're not really late. I started early because we don't know when this verdict is really going to come in. We're just going to watch some things together and chat and be ready when they do come back with a verdict. Um, I'm just waiting for, you know, I just figured we'd hang out and chat with each other and watch a few things because there were a few hearings that took place in the last few days that I'm interested in checking out. One of them being what you're looking at on the screen right there, which is James Crumbly. Hi. This James Crumbly hearing. The James Crumbly hearing. Now, if you recall, not just a couple weeks ago, Jennifer Crumbly sat for her trial. Jennifer and James Crumbly are the parents of the Oxford school shooter. And Jennifer Crumbly was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, basically, of, basically negligence. Yeah, so I'm not sure how to put out a notification while the stream is going. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put out a community post when the verdict comes in, and there will be a notification that way. So keep an eye on notifications. Hopefully it'll come through a community post that I share. So anyway, so while we're waiting and chatting, I thought we would watch this James Crumbly hearing. I guess they were in court for some pretrial motions, and I'm interested in hearing what happened. And it's about evidence and witnesses. And I don't know if you watched the Jennifer Crumbly trial with me, but it was really interesting. It was the one where Shannon Smith represented her, and Shannon Smith was incredibly dramatic. Very, very, very dramatic. Kind of made the trial more about her than the victims or her client. Didn't really do Jennifer Crumbly any favors, and Jennifer Crumbly was declared guilty. The verdict was guilty. So let's take a listen to this. That's correct, Chopper. So this is now the father who went to the gun store with the son to buy the son the gun. So Jennifer, in her trial, tried to, her lawyer was terrible. Jennifer tried to put everything on James. Jennifer tried to say, oh, well, that was all, James is the one that took the shooter to the store. He's the one that was in charge of locking up the guns. He was the one who was in charge of doing this and that, but she was still found guilty. So that day that the verdict came back guilty, must have been a pretty bad day for James, because he was sitting in jail going, okay, well, if they see me as more culpable, then that's my future. So, hello, Leo. Yeah, we're just hanging out and waiting for the verdict, and we're watching something else while that happens. This is a hearing that took place yesterday.
989 FH.
Thank you, Marquise, on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Honor. David Williams on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Maria Lehman on behalf of Mr. Crumbly.
Good morning. Mr. Crumbly, can you hear us? You have the headset on,
Yes,
so I want to make sure you can hear us.
I can hear you.
If at any time you can't hear anything going on in the courtroom, please let me know.
Thank you.
All right? All right, so I have the former client waiver form that we're going to go through first,
Thank
correct?
you, Judge.
Mr. Crumbly is also filling it out and signing it as we speak, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Crumbly, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can put your hand down, and can you tell me your full name?
James Robert Crumbly,
And how old are you?
47.
Can you read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes.
Can you hear and understand me?
Yes.
Could you hear and understand your attorney?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with her advice?
Yes.
You understand that you are charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
Yes.
And do you understand that you have the right to conflict-free representation?
Yes.
Although there was formally joint representation in this case, do you understand that attorney Shannon Smith represented your wife, Jennifer Crumley, and that Miss Mariel Lehman now only represents you?
Yes.
Do you understand that your own interests and your co-defendant's interests may be or later may be or become material adverse?
Yes.
All right. Do you understand that both your attorney and your co-defendant's attorney have indicated that there was previously a conflict of interest between you and your co-defendant, and that is why we have separate trials?
Yes.
Although there are now separate trials, do you understand that your co-defendant is a former client of your attorney?
Yes.
Do you understand that the duty of confidentiality continues after the client-lawyer relationship is terminated, which means that your attorney still must protect the confidentiality of privileged information provided by your co-defendant?
Yes.
Do you understand that given the duties owed to former clients, your attorney may be limited in their representation? For example, your attorney may not be able to use privileged information obtained from your co-defendant to further your own interests?
Yes.
Do you understand that these limitations can affect things such as decisions relating to the matters of trial strategy? For example, the presentation of evidence at trial, the examination of witnesses, the decision to call certain witnesses, also potential negotiations in terms of a sentence agreement, and also arguments made at sentencing?
Yes.
Do you consent to attorney Shannon Smith continuing to solely represent your wife, Ms. Jennifer Crumley, and attorney Mariel Lehman continuing to solely represent you?
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to consult with your retained counsel as it relates to the issue of your representation?
Yes.
Do you understand that by entering the waiver, you will not be able to raise these issues in an appeal should you be convicted?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about any of the issues raised on this form for either me or your attorney?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Are you satisfied?
I am, thank you.
Okay. All right. So at the moment, there's been a number of motions zooming back and forth. But today, I think the only motion we're addressing is a motion filed by the defense with regard to the prosecutor's added witnesses.
Yes,
Correct?
Judge.
Correct, Your Honor.
I know that's your motion, but I think I'd like to ask for the prosecutor to provide an offer of proof with regard to these witnesses. I think that would be helpful.
Yes, Your Honor.
I know them only by their initials. You all have the police reports and numerous documents, and so I'm not as familiar with some of the witnesses.
Thank you, Judge. Is a little bit of background, Judge. We amended our witness list 30 days prior to trial. We did so while the jury was still deliberating in the case of People versus Jennifer Crumley. We are acutely aware of the impact it has on witnesses to testify, not just about what happened to them, but on national television. So when we amended the witness list, we did so before we had the opportunity to speak with them to confirm that they would be available and ready to testify the next case. We have, and they are cooperative. They are ready and available to testify should they be called upon. We added 4 names to the witness list, 3 that were identified as minors, 2 were actually have reached the age of majority.
I was going to ask you that.
Yes, Judge. So we would only seek to have those individuals testify. Initials KO and RF. Those individuals are both above the age of 18.
Are you abandoning your request to call HA?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it looks like he's
So we have confirmed with their families
planning
as well
to take this to
that
trial,
they
and
are
he has
ready, willing,
hearing
and available
impaired
should they be
and-
called upon.
Okay.
So again, we did so with as much notice of defense counsel, and it was 30 days prior to trial, because we are aware that this court does run a very tight ship. As the court recalls the last trial, we were delayed from weather. We had a witness who had COVID. We had another witness with childcare issues. We had yet another witness who was on vacation. We had to reorganize our proofs and presentation on the fly. So we want to be able to present our case in an efficient manner. We don't seek to expand the record necessarily, but we do want to be prepared to have opportunities to present our case should one or more witnesses become unavailable for any particular reason.
Okay, well, I guess that's one of my questions, because you have Molly Darnell and Christy Gibson Marshall, who testified in the previous trial, testifying in this trial as well.
That's correct.
Because I guess I read, I don't know if it was a free press in the Detroit News, interpretation of the addition of the witnesses, that maybe they're supposed to take the place of other witnesses who felt too traumatized to testify. So
Again, I believe that was the interpretation, Judge, and if it was articulated that way in the motion, then that was
I
inadvertent.
don't think it was. But
Okay, thank you, Judge.
I thought maybe I was mistaken. So
I believe so, Judge. So
I'm interested in that.
yes, Judge, they are available and they are cooperative and will be testifying in this case, Judge. Again, when we amended the witness list, it was right after they testified while the jury was still deliberating, and we are aware of the impact it has on everybody, not just civilian witnesses, but police officers as well. So we wanted to proceed in an abundance of caution. They have options should we need those options. But since the time that I filed, and I communicated this to defense counsel as well, and we had private conversations regarding this, and I said the intent was not to add a number of witnesses. It was to be prepared in the event that someone would have to drop out at the last second, Judge.
Okay, are you able to give the court an offer of proof with regard to KORF and as a separate issue, Kyle Keyser?
Yes, Judge. If I may, I'll start with Mr. Keyser.
Okay.
So Mr. Keyser is the original purchaser of the 6-hour 9mm handgun from the firearm store in Oxford. He bought that firearm in May of 2021. He used the firearm 3 times. He sold the firearm back to that same firearm store in Oxford on November the 13th of 2021. That's the gun that was purchased by this defendant, James Crumbly, on November the 26th.
Okay.
So he was added in response to statements made by Jennifer Crumbly's attorney during her presentation of the case, as well as Jennifer Crumbly's testimony. Now, I don't know what counsel's argument is going to be regarding the firearm. I don't know if Mr. Crumbly is going to testify or what he might say. So we added that individual. He's potentially a rebuttal witness. Obviously, we have no obligation to identify rebuttal witnesses. However, should the argument be presented in a certain fashion similar to that of Jennifer Crumbly, I think the background of that firearm, how it was stored, how it was bought and sold would be relevant to the jury. So he was added after hearing the co-defendant's case in chief, Judge.
Okay, I'm not following. You're adding him for the purposes of rebuttal only?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So it depends. I don't know how counsel is going to litigate her case, and obviously she's under no obligation to let us know that.
I was struggling with the relevance he might bring to the case.
So again, he bought the eventual murder weapon in May.
Okay.
He used it 3 times. He was provided with a cable lock. He never used the cable lock. He identified that as the same cable lock sold back to the firearm store,
Okay.
which in turn will be identified by those witnesses as the same cable lock sold to Mr. Crumbly.
Okay, I get it now.
So
All right.
again, and with KO and RF, both were students.
Well, let me make sure that Mr. Keyser would potentially be in your case in chief, but you're asking for him on rebuttal
Well,
at a minimum.
potentially on case in chief, and it really just depends.
So I didn't know that. I didn't know that not only did they buy the cable lock and not use the cable lock, but also sold the cable lock back to the store unused. Yeah. This is not looking good for him. I wonder what the defense is going to be. Is it going to be it's the school's fault? Because I think it'd be hard to say it was Jennifer's fault since she was convicted. And he's the one that took more proactive steps. You know what I'm saying?
Is how the case
Okay.
progresses, Judge.
All right. Okay.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
KO and RF, Judge, both students, both wounded November the 30th, 2021. They were both in the 200 hallway, and they were struck as the defendant's son emerged from the bathroom adjacent to room 258.
Okay, well, I guess breaking this down, the fact that they were wounded is potentially not relevant. What they saw is potentially relevant.
But they
Okay,
both can provide testimony of seeing. They didn't identify the shooter as who the shooter was. They didn't know him prior to, but they saw a student dressed in all in black. RF saw the gun raised. She saw what she thought was an orange tip. Turns out it was actually the muzzle flash of the firearm as it was fired at her.
at her.
At
All
her.
right.
Correct. Both were wounded. Both survived, obviously,
Okay.
and they were together in the 200 hallway. If the court recalls from the video, in the group of young women next to the window.
Okay.
So
All right, but don't we have a video of that?
we do have a video, Judge, but
Okay.
and the video obviously is extremely relevant, extremely important because the shooting is why we are here. And when we have actual eyewitness testimony available, it is important for the jury to hear that perspective.
Okay, what about KO?
KO was next to RF.
Okay, so why isn't this cumulative of either the video or Molly Darnell or Krista Gibson Marshall?
Molly Darnell and Miss Gibson Marshall were in different parts of the school. They had different interactions with the shooter. KO and RF are the two individuals who are above the age of 18 with the best perspective of what happened on November 30th as a shooter emerged from the bathroom.
This is just a side note, and good morning to more people coming in. This is just a side note. I appreciate and love hearing the different accents from the different places where we are hearing people give arguments. And in Michigan, you hear very distinctive ways of saying things like that. So this particular prosecutor, who was also the prosecutor for Jennifer Crumbley, when he says that, he says the at. He says, and that's the one that. And you hear also the judge and other members of the lawyer team and things like that saying, certain words that way. And I like picking out those, different American English accents from around the country.
Okay, is there anything you want to add about with regard to an offer of proof? Because really, this is Ms. Lehman's motion.
Anything you
I
want
thought
to
it was
add?
more important to have you start so that I would know what you are asking to present. So
Yes, sir.
So A's are pronounced in different ways. Here in Michigan, A has an E. It's like an that, an ad, ed, that, ad.
And again, just we are limited to the individuals we can call from that hallway because two were murdered in that hallway.
Mhm.
So these are the two individuals that have the best perspective, who are now above the age of 18, who can actually testify as to what they saw, what they felt, what they heard as the shooter emerged from the bathroom and opened fire.
Okay.
It's not the same evidence as the video. The video has no sound. The video does not give that sort of depiction, that eye-level depiction, that eyewitness testimony. So it's not cumulative. If we called every single student who was in that hallway, it could be cumulative, but we're being very selective in who we're choosing to call to testify because we want to limit it to the individuals who can provide the appropriate context and appropriate perspective that is not identical to anyone else.
All right. I guess I've been doing a deep dive into 611 and 403. When you put the black robe on, you learn how to read people's minds. So Ms. Lehman is going to tell me about U.S. versus McRae, which talks about 403's major function is limited to excluding a matter of scant or cumulative probative force dragged in by the heels for the sake of its prejudicial effect. 403 is meant to relax the iron rule of evidence to permit the trial judge to preserve the fairness of the proceedings by exclusion despite its relevance. It's not designed to permit the court to even out the weight of the evidence to mitigate a crime or to make a contest where there is little or none. That's from that McRae case, and there's a discussion of 403. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but
Your Honor, I did file the motion and I'm certain
That was interesting. She said when you put on the black robe, you start to read minds, and I feel like you're going to use this argument. So here's the argument that I think you're going to use. And here's here's a little bit of a preview of what I think your argument's going to be. Okay, give your argument. Um, it's been about, let me see if there's any sort of ticker. It's been about 3 hours. It's been about 3.5 hours over 2 days. So, it's been a standard amount of time considering they have 4 charges to look at, and it's a difficult set of circumstances, since they don't have a body, they have never found Harmony. And they're going by yeah, I would have said 1 to 3 hours as well. So I guess I would have lost 2.
that the court has reviewed that motion. As the court suspected, I am going to address specifically 403, especially in light of the offers of proof that Mr. Keese just provided to the court regarding KO and RF. Your Honor, while I can't imagine what those 2 students went through on November 30th of 2021, their testimony is not relevant in the trial against James Crumbley. He's been charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. He's not charged with assaulting anyone with a firearm. He's not charged with shooting anyone and wounding anyone. He's charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the actions of his son. As the court correctly noted, Molly Darnell and Christy Gibson Marshall both testified in the prior trial and testified in relation to, I believe, in relation to the video that was admitted.
Would you agree that they were not in the same location as the 2 witnesses, KO and RF? KO and RF, did you say, are both outside the bathroom?
Correct.
Is that accurate?
The 200 hallway, it's been identified as the shorter of the 200 hallways.
Okay. I thought that in Ms. Lehman's motion, I think some of her information was gleaned from the victim impact statements in the shooter sentencing, but I think there was an indication that KO was a friend of Tate and that RF was staying somewhere else. Maybe it's HA who rendered help, but we're
HA.
HA, right? But HA we're not calling. So are there, would KO and RF be given the same testimony? Were they in the same hall?
It sounds like they were in the same hall, Your Honor. I believe Mr. Keese indicated they were standing right next to each other at the time of the shooting. Regardless, I don't think that either of them are relevant in this case, Your Honor. I think that the court can agree, and I think that Mr. Keese would likely agree that their testimony, the primary purpose of their testimony is to inflame the emotions of the jury. I mean, their testimony or whatever they can provide can also be provided in a video. The whole purpose of admitting the video and not having sound on the video was to lessen the prejudicial impact on the jury. We litigated this previously, and this has been discussed with the court. The purpose of the video and admitting the video is to show the jury what actually occurred during that shooting. The shooting is caught on the video, Your Honor. So the court has previously decided that the video is being admitted.
Yeah.
I still don't believe that it's relevant in this case, Your Honor. However, I know that that's the court's.
Did you hear that after the lawyer said the shooting was caught on the video, Your Honor? And the judge says, yes, I've seen it. And you could hear kind of the weariness in the judge's voice, like, I'll never forget it, basically.
Ruling. So allowing the testimony of 2 students who were not only in the hallway, but were also wounded by the shooter, Your Honor, I just don't find it relevant. And I think that it is, even if the court finds it relevant, it's highly unfairly prejudicial in this case in light of the other evidence that the prosecution can present. And again, we've offered to stipulate to some of these facts so that these witnesses don't have to testify, so that the video doesn't have to be played. The prosecution doesn't want to do that, Judge.
Well, they don't have to.
And
I
they
think
don't
they'd
have
agree
to, it's
with
their case to present, Your Honor. However, when it comes to these two students, their testimony, even if the court finds it relevant, is unfairly prejudicial to James Crumbly.
Well, that's, Bradbury says that although relevant, evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion of the issues, or misleading the jury, or by considerations of undue delay, waste of time, or needless presentation of cumulative evidence. That's Bradbury 123, Mishap 179.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Judges, I thought I heard a question directed at the prosecution from the court. So one thing, I definitely do not agree that the video is being played to inflame the jury. Perhaps Councilwoman spoke and she said prosecutor agrees that's the purpose. That's certainly not the purpose.
Good morning, people who have come in. Yes, please remember to hit the like button. You have not missed anything. We are still on on verdict watch. Nobody's come back. We're over 3 hours into deliberations over in New Hampshire. So we have taken a field trip over to Michigan to watch a hearing that took place yesterday in the James Crumbly matter. James Crumbly is the husband of Jennifer Crumbly, who was just convicted of manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter in the Oxford shooting for her participation in the death of the children in Michigan at this Oxford school. So thank you very much, East Coast Beauty. So what I'm going to do is, while we're waiting for the verdict, show a few different hearings that took place yesterday, and keep you updated on what I see over in New Hampshire, but still no movement in New Hampshire. So what we're hearing from this particular hearing is the state and the prosecution are arguing about who should testify at the James Crumbly trial, and it's regarding specific witnesses who survived the shooting. And it's sounding to me like the judge is siding with the defense that particular witnesses should not be able to testify because it's prejudicial to the defense. But I'm not sure if the judge ends up ruling. We'll have to keep watching and see. But yes, please remember to hit the thumbs up. I will share the membership link soon. Please consider becoming a member.
And also, just the shooting is relevant. This is a homicide case. The shooting is
It
evidence
is.
of the
It
gross
is.
negligence. So the two individuals we identified, they were not looking at the same thing. They were not oriented the same direction. They have different perspectives. And again, these are the only two surviving members of the hallway that we have confirmed with their families that they are willing and able to testify in this trial, Judge. We are, again, acutely aware of the toll it takes on individuals to testify. There's members of law enforcement who still can't talk about that day. And we're also aware to not put cumulative evidence in front of the jury because it doesn't have any purpose, Judge. So we're aware of all.
The other thing we're doing is paying attention to English language accents in the U.S. Like this young man who just said he have. I love paying attention to people's accents. He have.
Because it doesn't have any purpose, Judge. So we're aware of all that. And just because we've added the witness list doesn't necessarily mean we're going to call all of them too. We still have 13 days to decide which witnesses will be presented at trial in which order.
Anything further? I'm probably going to write something. I guess, listening, and you didn't address Kyle Keyser. I was sort of racking my brain to see why he's relevant, but now I think he is.
Your Honor, I addressed him in my motion. I maintain the argument that I don't believe he's relevant.
Well, if he apparently might have some information about the cable lock and whether the cable lock is in the same condition. If he's shown the cable lock during the course of the trial, if he testifies it's in the same condition it was in at the time that he resold the gun, that could be relevant. So I'm going to allow him to testify. As to KO and RF, I'm probably going to spend a little time. All right, but I will let you know very quickly. I've issued some orders on some of the other motions. And we'll issue some more orders this week. And I got another motion last night. So it's good that I don't have any other cases. What else can we do for you?
Council and I spoke about meeting with the court briefly in chambers, talk about logistics, if that's
Sure.
agreeable.
Or maybe in the jury room if you want. I don't have anything to ask you about, but if you'd like to meet, talk about logistics, that would be fine.
There's just one issue that I think we'd like to discuss with the court.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
So that was that. The judge decided right there on the bench to allow one of the witnesses they were arguing about, and that was the man who is going to come in and testify that the cable lock was purchased and then resold to them completely unused. I think that's pretty damn relevant testimony. So the judge is allowing that, but she is going to think about the other two witnesses, which are were high school students at the time, but are now, and they were minors at the time, but are no longer minors. So that should be interesting. There is still no movement whatsoever in the courtroom over in New Hampshire. So we're going to take a different field trip now over to Arizona, where this absolute lunatic of a woman had a very brief hearing yesterday. Now, why do I call this woman a lunatic? I'm assuming most of you know who this is. This is Lori Vallow. She was on trial last year for the murder of her children. She was convicted. She, East Coast Beauty, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let me show you a court clip for that to thank you for your contribution to my channel. Let's find a fun court clip for you. A really good one. This one cracks me up.
I have an objection.
Shut up.
I have a right to object, I believe, Your Honor.
You have the right to get held in contempt of court. And that's what's going to happen if you don't shut up.
Shut up. So, yeah, exactly, Lollipop Guild. Thank you very much for hitting the like and sharing. I appreciate that. So, Lori acted like she was walking on stage, smiling and giggling with her lawyer, and she looked all primped. Now, when you compare Lori to Jennifer Crumbly, you can say at least Lori found a brush. At least Lori found a brush. But when you look at Lori and you understand what she did and the reasons she did them, I personally cannot help but just feel sheer anger and disgust and contempt for this woman. And for those of you who don't know, so she was convicted of murder. Oh, thank you, East Coast Beauty. I really think. Okay, you get another court clip. You get another court clip. How about this one?
Good morning, sir. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah, you. Yes.
Nathaniel Saxon, sir.
Your name's not Buttfucker 3000, you yo-ho. What kind of idiot logs into court like that?
Yeah, yo hole. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Still no movement in the courtroom over there. So here's Lori, and we aren't going to see her for very long, thank goodness. But she's in Arizona now. And she has been transported and moved to Arizona to sit trial for the murder of Charles Vallow. Charles Vallow was her husband, and she and her brother worked together to ambush him and have him murdered. Lori and her brother and Chad Daybell were part of a cult that took it upon themselves to determine who should die and who should live based on a chart of, light and dark souls. And Chad Daybell is going to be going to trial in Idaho for the murders of Lori's children and his wife this year. And Lori is going to be sitting trial for Charles Vallow sometime this year. Good morning, Jen Lou. Jen Lou, we are just sitting here watching, and Rando, hello. We are sitting here watching a few different hearings that happened yesterday as we wait for a verdict. Nothing has come in yet that we know of. And I keep hitting the tab over on Verdict Watch probably every 2 seconds. So, all right, let's hit play on Ms., Lori Vallow. I can't think of enough horrible names for this woman. Just remember, as you watch this woman, what she has been convicted of doing to her children. For anybody who watched that trial, it was absolutely horrific. I couldn't stand to even cover it on a daily basis. It was too emotional for me because I had followed it from the very beginning. So I can't even begin. There's no way for me to express the contempt I feel for this woman. So, and I have not watched this footage yet, so let's watch it together. It's short, thank God. Oh my God. When you walk into a courtroom as if you are walking onto the stage of the fucking Grammys, there is something seriously wrong with you, okay? It's like she's about to be received by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. My God. She does. She thinks she's a fucking rock star. Yep, I agree. The Melanies need to be next. I wholeheartedly agree. And, thank you for that correction, Jen Lou. For the murder of Charles and the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. Because somebody did attempt to murder Brandon Boudreaux. That was Lori's niece's husband. Now ex-husband. They were in the process of getting divorced. He gets out of his car in his driveway and someone tries to shoot him. And someone tried to assassinate Tammy Daybell in the same manner as well. Whoever tried to do those assassinations obviously sucked as a shooter. I think it was Alex. Lori's brother, who is now dead, and they said it was natural causes, but it was probably some sort of, sacrificial suicide or something. Sorry for trigger warning. Anyway, let's keep watching.
All right, we're doing Larry City versus Lori Vallow, CR 2021-001704, CR 2022-001242.
Attorney Kay, on behalf of the state, for the record, the next of kin and victim are appearing virtually.
Thank you.
Good morning, Keith Terry and Danae Suki on behalf of Ms. Vallow, who's present and bearing in custody.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you tell me your name and date of birth?
Lori Valameva, 6/26/1973.
All right, this is the time set for a complex case scheduling conference.
Now, at the conference, which lasted about 4 minutes, attorneys said that they would be going through discovery for the next foreseeable months. Another hearing was scheduled for April 24th, which the defense waived her appearance for. In Arizona, Vallow Daybell is facing charges of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in 2 separate indictments. The first alleges that Lori conspired with her brother Alex Cox to murder her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, on July 11, 2019. Cox admitted that he shot.
Oh my God. Yep. You're so vain. You probably think this video's about you. You're so vain. You probably think this video's about you. It's too early in the morning. I don't have my star voice on right now. Oh my God. I cannot emphasize how much I loathe this woman. So she and her brother ambushed this man that she's in the picture with, and her brother murdered him just in cold blood, and then staged it as if Alex killed him in self-defense. And the police basically believed him, believed Alex's story of self-defense. And then Alex died, and they ruled it natural causes, Brad. They ruled it natural causes, but it sounded like it could have been an unaliving by himself. Because he took a trip to Mexico the day before, and it was reported that he took those trips to Mexico to get certain types of drugs for himself and other people. So we shall see. So that happened yesterday as well. Still no action in the court for verdict watch. Here, we'll look at I'll show you just so you can, for your own comfort level. No verdict still. No verdict. So, there was also a more lengthy hearing for Chad Dorman. And Chad Dorman is the guy who killed his 3 sons, his 3 young children, and basically confessed to it. But yesterday was a lengthy hearing to determine whether that confession should get thrown out. And I started to watch the hearing yesterday, but I didn't get to go all the way through it. There are A for effort. I tried. Hold on one moment. Hold on. When you say because IIRC, there are I should know what IIRC means, but I don't know. But off the top of my head, and maybe because it's morning, I'm not sure what you mean. Lynn, thoughts on cellular situation today? We are on SOS only, like so many across the country. 911 days to text them as people can't call. I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe there's something going on that I'm not aware of, but is it that this, oh, if I recall correctly, that's one that's a one I hadn't seen. There's a big outage. See, okay, I'll look at news. Thank you. Sorry, sometimes I'm so locked into all this other stuff that I'm covering that I haven't seen that other breaking news that's going on. Let me look here. I'm looking at the news. One moment. As the verdict. Huh. Wow. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's pretty major, you guys. What do I think is the cause? I'm always, so I'm one of those types of people that I hate to jump in front of, saying what a cause is before we know enough about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's very tempting to say, oh my God, we've been hacked, right? It's very, very tempting to say something like that, but it's also dangerous to say something like that because we don't know. But I'm reading something right now that says why AT&T went down. AT&T has encountered sporadic outages over the last few days, including temporary 911 outage in some parts of the southeastern United States. Although outages happen from time to time nationwide, prolonged outages are exceedingly rare. Although AT&T provided no official reason for the outage, the issue appears to be related to how cellular services hand off calls from one network to the next, a process known as peering, according to an industry source who spoke on the condition of anonymity. There's no indication that Thursday's outage was the result of a cyber attack or other malicious activity, the industry source said. Verizon believes a nationwide outage involving AT&T customers is close to being resolved, according to Richard Young, a Verizon spokesperson. Carriers are notoriously mum about why their networks go down. In the past, there have been construction accidents that have cut fiber optic cables, incidents of sabotage or other network updates. So, yeah. That's the thing, is like, even if it was some sort of cyber attack by an outside source, there are ways to fix it, to fix it really quickly, and it won't help us to know that in real time. What it does say is that we should always have a plan for if that happens. if our first responders aren't able to come to us, we should always have a plan for that. We should never, ever, ever just assume that all the things that we take for granted are going to be there. And that is the unfortunate reality of the situation. Everything that we depend on electronically, like the internet, electricity, and 911, and first responders, we always have to have some sort of redundancy or workaround. And the thing is that I don't like to get too radical about those ideas, because when you get too radical about those ideas, you end up being a person like Lori Vallow, who starts following a prophet around and believing that the prophet knows who should live and who should die, and who's going to get salvation when God comes to save everybody. So that's all. That's all I'm saying. But that's pretty. It is. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use shocking. I don't want to say the word shocking, but it is a very unexpected development. And in this context of all these wars that are happening, it's people should be or shouldn't be should be excused for thinking in these ways, right? I mean, exactly. I was raised in a generation where those services were hit and miss. I watch a lot of shows where from history, where you think that was back in the day when 9/11 didn't not 9/11, but 911 didn't exist. You just say, hey, call that. Hey, what's the phone number for the ambulance? What's the phone number for the fire stations? We've become kind of lazy in our in the advantages that we have. So, but I also am not evangelizing for us becoming radicalized into a cult that believes that we have determined who should live and who should die. Does that make sense? Wow, that's crazy, Rando. That would be really, really scary. So, I'm still keeping an eye on the verdict, and you have it right there in front of your screen. In the meantime, there was another very big development in some cases that I'm watching. And one of them is in the Gabby Petito case. Now, in the Gabby Petito case, we all know that Gabby Petito was murdered by her then fiance, Brian Laundrie, right? And we all know that Brian Laundrie eventually he unalived himself after running away with, I believe, the help of his parents. And in the backpack that was found near him, there was a suicide note where he confessed to killing Gabby. After that, Gabby's parents. She has a set of 4 parents, 2 natural parents and 2 step parents. Then sued Brian's parents for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And the facts of their complaint were quite distressing. Very, very distressing. Information that came out into the complaint about what the Laundries knew as as Gabby's parents were looking for Gabby were shocking. We started to learn things like that Brian called Brian called his parents in a panic and said, Gabby is gone. And then that day, Brian's parents got him a lawyer. And that day was August 28th. And it was determined that Gabby died on August 27th. And he killed her in Wyoming in a wilderness and left her out in the open, just didn't even bury her, just left her there and drove to Florida. Okay? Called his parents, said she's gone. They got Brian a lawyer. In the meantime, Brian doesn't tell Gabby's parents anything about this. Gabby's parents start looking for Gabby. They are frantic because they aren't hearing from her. The last communication they get from Gabby is on August 30th, and it's a weird text. And it turns out it was a text that he wrote from Gabby, from her phone, saying they were going into Yosemite and the service was going to be spotty. So, but then they stopped hearing from her. So they become frantic. They start contacting Brian. They start contacting the Laundries, and the Laundries and Brian systematically ghost the Petito family. And they are growing more and more frantic. They go to the home of the Laundries. The Laundries basically shut the door on their face, won't tell them where their daughter is. And all this time, they know she's fucking dead. This pisses me off so much, you guys. I'm so angry about this case. I'm so angry. This girl deserves so much better. So the Gabby's parents do press conferences. They have searches going. They have family and friends frantically looking all over for her. And then she's finally found. And meanwhile, Brian and his family go take a camping trip together in Florida. And then they find Gabby by some miracle, because some YouTubers had driven by her van when it was parked. No, I could not imagine. That's why I'm so angry. No, I just is completely out of scope for my brain to imagine that happening to me. I just, it's overwhelming. So by some miracle, some YouTubers that had a channel called Red, White, and Bethune, they were van life YouTubers. And that's what Brian and Gabby were trying to do, was launch a van life YouTube channel. They, Red, White, and Bethune just happened to be driving by and captured video of Gabby's van when it was parked, where it was parked, right where Gabby's body was found. They turned in that video to authorities because there had been, be on the lookout for this white van that was Gabby's. And this white van was found in the woods, and they turned that video in to police. And where that white van was where Gabby's body was found, a few hundred yards away. So now that Gabby's body was found, the hunt was on. Nope, no jury yet. We're looking at the live feed from the courtroom right now as I ramble about the Gabby Petito case, because there was a big update yesterday in the Petito situation. So when they found Gabby, all that time, there was also a hunt for Brian Laundrie. He had been hiding out at the Laundrie residence. There had been protests in front of the Laundrie house. There were, lunatic YouTubers like Bullhorn Betty and Molly Golightly out there with bullhorns, making things worse. But there was a big media presence there. Somehow, some way, even though the police said, oh yeah, we know exactly where Brian is, he was able to get out of the house. Good morning, KPM. He was able to get out of that house unnoticed, escape to the Carlton Reserve, and unalive himself. And he wasn't found until several months later. And in his backpack, in his waterlogged backpack, was a unalive note where he confesses to killing Gabby. And he makes up some ridiculous, whiny ass excuse for it. That he was basically taking mercy on her because she was suffering, because she had tripped and fallen, hit her head, and she was suffering. So the reason I'm telling you about all of this is because because Gabby's parents sued Brian and Christopher Laundrie for intentional infliction of emotional distress, and it was headed to trial later this year, and they just came to a settlement. It was just settled yesterday. And it was settled yesterday after after a deposition, after information from that deposition was leaked to the media. And in the deposition, apparently Chris Laundrie, the father of Brian Laundrie, said that he just had no idea what Brian Laundrie meant when he called and said Gabby's gone. He was frantic and he said Gabby's gone. What else was he going to mean when he said Gabby's gone? What he meant was she's dead. Right? She's dead. And somehow Christopher Laundrie knew that he needed to get his son a lawyer after his son calls and says Gabby's gone. His father knows he needs to get a lawyer but doesn't know that she's dead. I mean, it's absolutely insane, you guys. It's absolutely insane. But I'm going to read to you now from a portion of an article about this settlement that they just reached yesterday. It says, and this is from Fox News, the parents of Gabby Petito, a 22-year-old travel blogger whose fiance Brian Laundrie killed her in Wyoming in a cross-country van life road trip, have reached a settlement in a civil lawsuit against his parents and their attorney, Steve Bertolino. Oh, that's right. They also sued the attorney because he was the front person in all of these things. Christopher and Roberta Laundrie and I participated in mediation with the Petito family, and the civil lawsuit has now been resolved, he told Fox News Digital. After the parties met with a third-party mediator for much of the day. The terms of the resolution are confidential, and we look forward to putting this matter behind us. Nothing has been officially filed Wednesday evening, but both sides acknowledge the settlement had been reached after an exhausting session. Petito's parents, Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, and sued Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, and later added Bertolino to the case, accusing the trio of inflicting emotional distress by misleading them about the missing woman's whereabouts before her remains were found north of Jackson, Wyoming. The undisclosed settlement brings an emotional proceeding that has dragged on for over a year to a close. In a series of depositions unsealed this month, the Laundries acknowledged they had concerns for Petito's well-being when their son showed up in their Florida doorstep in her van without her, but they denied having any knowledge of her fate before an FBI-led search uncovered her remains on September 19th. I just want to remind you for anyone who might have been following. One moment. That's Gabby Petito. That was the beautiful Gabby Petito. That was when she was on her van life trip with her fiance, and may she rest in peace. So that's the update there. We still do not have a verdict. I'm going to look at X right now and see if there's any updates there. I can't believe I just called it X without calling it Twitter. Let's see here. See if there's anything from inside the court. So apparently right now we're at 4 hours and 10 minutes in terms of how long the jury has deliberated. And he once again has refused transport to the court. I read somewhere where it says that he does not have to be there for the verdict, but he does have to be there for sentencing. Yeah, no, it doesn't look like I'm checking out WMUR because they're posting live updates on their website from the courtroom. 10:15 a.m. 15 minutes ago. There's nothing yet, But when court announcements are made, if they say counsel to courtroom 1, that means jury had a question. If they say counsel and parties to courtroom 1, that's likely a verdict. Okay. (9:39 a.m.) The reporter says, there's no verdict yet, but when the verdicts are read in court, they will be read in the following order: second-degree assault, second-degree murder, falsifying physical evidence, abuse of corpse, tampering with witnesses and informants. Yep. And still nobody. Still nobody there. Okay, so since nobody's there now, and there was another hearing yesterday that I am interested in watching, and I'm going to pull it up quickly here. Actually, there's a new Amber Alert. Where is the new Amber Alert solo sock? I think he might have already been. Or maybe the assault charges are that, since and she is a child. So I'm not totally sure the answer. Okay. You know what I've decided I'm super interested in watching is this police interrogation, because I have not watched this in full, and it's not that long, and it's of Adam, and it's pertinent to this case. So I'm going to flip this on. And while I'm still also keeping an eye on the court, just to, see if they come back with the verdict. So let's check this out while we let's check out Adam in action as we wait for his verdict to come back.
What are you referring to? Well, you were there, I wasn't, right? Well, what are you referring to? So that paperwork that we served you the other day, you remember that? Okay. When they were in the alleyway, you remember outside of Long Lake Ave? Yeah. There's paperwork that you have to comply with. You understand that, right? Okay. We had that conversation, did we not? Right? So that's what that's all about. So like, secondary assault charge, what is this referring to? Well, that's what we want to talk to you about. Well, explain to me what, if I'm being charged with it, what the hell am I being charged with it for? Well, your daughter had some injuries that you know about when you lived on Guilford Street?
No, I do not. What are you referring to?
Well, you were there, I wasn't, right?
What are you referring to?
I'm referring to her having some good marks.
What are you referring to?
Marks that were left on her by you.
Absolutely not. I have nothing else to say. You guys are completely out of line. So
Me?
yeah.
Do I? In the time you've known me, which
What you just said to me, you guys are completely out of line.
Okay, but so explain to me, how are we out of line?
I have nothing to explain.
Okay, but wouldn't you rather explain it so we can make sense of it than just have other people's side of the story? Like, you want to defend yourself and like this picture people are painting of you? Now's your chance, man. Defend
Whose side of the story? Who's telling you these things?
people that were close to you.
Obviously not.
Well, maybe at the time, maybe not anymore.
Isn't it interesting to see this in hindsight? How he keeps saying, "Oh, you're out of line. You guys are just out of line asking me these questions." Because now we know he admitted it to like 3 different people, and people saw the physical signs of his abuse.
I mean, you saw that reward on the news, right?
No, I did not.
Do you know that the reward is about $40,000 to find where your daughter is right now?
Okay.
When you start throwing money around like that, people come out of the woodwork that you would never expect to do.
Okay.
So, like I said, when I talked to you a few days ago.
Can I have another cigarette?
Sure. I kind of told you this thing was going to get a lot bigger.
That's not right.
And we wanted to get ahead of it.
But you're sitting there telling me that right off the rip that there was something wrong with my daughter because of me. No, that's
okay. So if your daughter had marks on her at some point when you lived over there, how would you explain those?
How would you get those marks?
Well, I would love to know when that marks were there because DCYF came to my house multiple times.
Okay, and we know that they came there.
Right, and closed the case.
Okay. Do we know that DCYF is the flagship agency in the country?
No, but if there was significant marks like you're referring to, I believe they would have flagged something at that point and they would have said something. They would have came there and seen that the kids were well taken care of. All the kids loved being at the house with me.
So let me tell you about what second degree assault is. There's a lot that encompasses that charge. Basically, if there's a mark on a kid that's under a certain age, it constitutes second degree assault. Although it is a felony, which sounds extremely intimidating, it doesn't mean that somebody got their head bashed in or they got cut.
Hey y'all. All right, I just landed on something else that I'm super interested in watching another hearing. And it's the Rust movie shooting trial. New Mexico versus Hannah Gutierrez. So we're going to watch this while we wait for a verdict.
And are we ready for the jury? Counsel?
Yes,
Sure.
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Okay.
So for those of you who are not aware, this is the trial against the armorer in the movie that resulted in the death of the director of the movie that Alec Baldwin was in. And New Mexico has gone back and forth charging Alec Baldwin with this same charges. Hey, Grandma Sherry. So while we're waiting for the verdict for Adam Montgomery, we're going to start watching this. This is the first day of trial. And this is about the movie Rust, where a young woman was I am making these streams regular, actually. That's what I'm doing. But I'm picking and choosing my, which I'm choosing my streams based on the trial, not just day, I'm not just going to schedule a stream every single day. I'm going to schedule them by trial. But sometimes we have to sit here and wait for other things to happen. So I will jump around to different hearings and trials and stuff like that. And that's what we're doing right now as we wait for a verdict. So this is the first day of the Rust the Rust movie shooting trial. The person on trial is the armorer. That's her right there, Hannah. I'm totally in over my head on this. I did do a video about this, but not in terms of my feelings about the case itself and, the charges, more about how Alec Baldwin handled himself in the post charge publicity, which I thought, thank you very much, East Coast Beauty, and thank you, Solo Sock, and thank you everybody for the kind words. I thought Alec Baldwin behaved like a complete and utter fucking ass in his interview that he did about the Rust shooting. Now, I understand that he went through a horrible thing himself. But it just was so much like, a movie star of his caliber to make everything about him. And that's what he did. And I couldn't imagine being in his position. They haven't come back. Oh, someone type in chat to Harlot Oscara. They haven't come back. And but I am probably about as impartial as they can come when it comes to this particular defendant. Yeah, I agree, Christina. He just had no compassion. I mean, he's in the power position in terms of public opinion and public, thank you for typing that, Solo Sock. Thank you. He's in the power position, right? He's the rich guy. He's the famous guy. He doesn't need to do a publicity tour about whether he's innocent or guilty. He doesn't need to do that. That's right, Grandma. So for him to do that was just beyond selfish. So many people suffered on the set that day. So many things happened. They weren't prepared. They were not in any way, shape, or form prepared to deal with what happened that day on that set. They were going through a union strike, but a bunch of people didn't show up for the set. The woman we're looking at right there was the armorer, and Alec Baldwin basically put most of the blame on her and said that, you know, he usually trusted a different armorer, but they brought in this new armorer and it was really supposed to be her job. It was horrible. It was really supposed to be her job to do the things, and apparently she didn't do the things, and you know, he was pointing the gun right in the specific place that he was supposed to, and he was told to, you know, do the trigger. And there was a lot of outcry. I remember George Clooney did a video or an interview where he said that it sounded like complete carelessness to him. There are also, yes, there was some allegations that the armorer was under the influence. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm still looking back to see if there's a verdict. I do not see a verdict. It was, and they were also in the middle of the New Mexico desert, you know, in the boondocks. So they had to really wait for first responders to come, and then when the first responders to come, there was like confusion about who to give service to. And you know, since he's was the A-list star on the set, seems like more attention was given to him than the actual victim. Yep. It is. It makes it really difficult to have empathy for him considering his behavior. You know, there's something inside of me that whenever somebody cries, I want to cry for them. And man, that guy, he was broken. Yep, that's true. He is a named producer, so he is responsible. Absolutely. His name. But what he tried to minimize that by saying, I'm only a producer in name. Well, no. You can't just say that. That's true. 2 victims, because one died and the other one, the bullet hit him in the hand, was it? The arm, the hand. It hit him in the arm, right? So there's a surviving victim that will be there to testify, and great. Just when I point to a trial that's about to start, they take a break. Don't you love these trials? So maybe I'll go ahead and keep this one open as well and watch for them to come back, and we'll go back to Adam Montgomery's interrogation. My goodness, we're just bouncing around today.
Cut up or whatever. So, although it sounds pretty intimidating, the charge, I understand.
Oh,
that.
right, shoulder, right.
What we're talking about doesn't mean that it's the craziest crime that's ever been committed. Do you understand what I mean? Okay. So.
That's what I love about my chat. You guys are so smart and you're interested in the same things. Like you pay attention to the same things I do. Yep, that's true, Rando. Yeah. We're going to have to bounce around a little bit today because we're waiting on a few things to happen. Oh, don't these courts know that streamers are just, depending on it? I'm kidding.
Somebody could have a bruise or a really bad welt on them, and that would constitute second-degree assault for a kid under a specific age. So that's why that charge is there. So nobody is saying that you took like a baseball bat or like stabbed your kid. Like, I'm just going to put that out there. That is not what anybody's saying about you. Mm-hmm. So I know you're concerned with when I say second-degree assault, but it sounds a lot worse than I think you're thinking it is. Are we kind of on the same page?
Yeah, but for you to sit there and say that it was inflicted because of me.
We're just going on what we hear. You're not telling us how, so we're going with what we have.
But I don't even know what you're referring to. What are you referring to?
Your daughter had a mark on her face that multiple people, have told us was inflicted by you.
Multiple people that weren't even living with us at the time.
Well, there was enough people that had spoken about it.
Yeah.
People share knowledge of what they know.
So somebody, you telling him, and then he tells you, and then he tells you, so something that just gets passed down the line.
I'm not talking about like a game of telephone here. I'm saying that people say a story and then the details kind of fill themselves in, like corroborate. Do you know what the word corroborate means?
Of course I do.
Okay. You're a smart guy. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but when people kind of fill in the blanks, that's what I mean by like we're corroborating that story. But this is your time to tell me, kind of explain that. You know, if you're saying this was a mistake or this was an
I don't even know what you're referring to. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at, is I don't even know what you're referring to.
I'm saying she had a mark on her face. I mean,
I don't even know what you're referring to.
you don't recall your daughter.
Look how slimy he is. And yes, he's so cocky. I mean, like you can, when I guess, when Kevin said that his uncle Kevin said that he bashed Harmony around the room and he said he was really cocky about it. You can see it. He's always cocky. He's always cocky. Always, always, always. And he never just answers a straight question. He never answers a straight question with a straight answer. He's always evasive, answering a question with a question, changing the subject, saying what about. This guy is literally the definition of a coward.
Having a mark on her face.
The reason DCYF came out to visit you guys, you don't recall that? Why did DCYF come out and start visiting you guys? What was the allegation?
If I remember correctly, it was because of, I believe at the time, I could be wrong, I believe it had something to do with my uncle saying I was using drugs, and I wasn't.
Now, who's your uncle so we're clear?
Kevin.
Okay. And Kevin's last name?
Montgomery.
Now, he lived there with you?
He lived there with me right around the time when I was first going back to get custody from my daughter. At the time, I was going for custody for my daughter for at least a year already.
I think a lot of times they get their heads shaved because to prevent lice and other critters from coming in, but it seems like women would get that too, and it would be a standard treatment, but I don't think I've seen women get. I don't know. I am very ignorant in terms of the whole jail and prison process. The last time I was arrested was when I was 16. So that was a long, 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 long time ago for silliness.
At that point. And Crystal was showing no interest of going to get our daughter back. So finally in I don't know, December, January, February, something along them lines, Coles called me, told me I could come pick her up and bring her home. Brought her home. And then I don't know, it was I think the month before, my grandmother left with my brother and his girlfriend. And then the month after, I want to say, Kevin left.
So then who was left living at the house?
Me, Kayla, and the kids.
What time did DCYF get involved with you guys? Like, were they over there often, or was it just like a certain period of time? Or
They were there every single day.
Could this be a preview of what we can expect from Adam Montgomery on the stand if he chooses to testify?
But he didn't, did he? Because he's a little... Oh, that wasn't a good pause for her. He's a little cowardly little biatch. Let's see if we got more here.
after that, is that when you guys get that spot?
Nope, we go to the shelter.
And that's the one on...
Like,
Okay.
Who's we? Who went to a shelter? They allowed you to go as a family to the shelter?
See, I thought they didn't like guys there for some reason.
They always let guys there. They didn't let me in there this time for no reason. The reason was because I would have been there with Kayla again.
So back then they let you in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was all of you guys, like it was the five of you. They let you guys stay there.
No. All right, so yeah, you guys are just.
I'm trying to understand. I don't know your timeline of life, man. You're there. I'm not. That's why I'm trying to ask you these questions to clarify them.
I already told you the other day what trade.
I find it interesting that they're letting him smoke indoors. That's just a side note. Just a side note.
Expired. So we didn't even go to her mother's house.
Okay. Who didn't go to her mother's house?
Harmony was on.
Okay, so Harmony didn't go to Chris's house. So explain to me how she didn't end up going to Chris's house.
I've already explained this to you.
Okay.
Well, there's some discrepancies between what you're telling us.
I've already explained this to you. Very defensive, very uncooperative. If people are worried about where his daughter is, he should be more than helpful, right?
Somewhat. Other people are telling us. You're saying you brought her down to Mass. Somebody said she came up from Mass.
I never once said I brought her down to Mass.
What did you say? She came up here to get her?
I never once said. I was audio and video recording the other day. I never once said I went down to Mass.
So you're saying that she came up from Mass?
I'm not saying anything else.
Why is it that you refuse to talk about her every time we bring her up?
Because you guys are just sitting here beating a bush. It's over and over. You guys asked me what happened the other day. I told you what happened.
You wouldn't tell us the other day. You said
You guys talked to me the other day. I explained to him what happened the other day. And now, can I?
See, he's cruel and selfish. He's just using his participation as a tool. He's one of those people, everything is a tool to him, including his participation, his cooperation. Oh, I'm not going to talk to you. You keep asking me the same questions I don't want to answer. So goodbye. Goodbye, good sir. You don't get me anymore.
It was just a charade. Yep. No, don't worry about it. You're not under arrest, and I'll come up.
They didn't arrest you.
No, the other day. No, but they had a SWAT team roll up on me, and the D-Techs follow me around for the last 3 days.
Yeah, the people are coming out of the woodwork. That's what we're trying to tell you. Like, we don't want you to be painted as a monster. We want you to maybe explain yourself a little bit and give us some side of your story. We have nothing. We have just what we're hearing from people. $40,000 to drag a lot of people out, whether you believe you're your friends or not.
No, I bet
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I know it is. Absolutely it is.
That's what we're trying to get. Now's your time. Like, you keep locking up on us. You don't want to tell us anything about her.
No, I got nothing else to say.
We have people around the clock calling into us, giving us tips from all over the country because they care too.
Yeah, I totally get that it's a strategy to keep a inmate talking and comfortable and all that. I'm just being wonky and pedantic and thinking, wow, you can smoke indoors some places. You know, I'm just being wonky and pedantic and thinking about how gross it smells in that room, and thinking about the 70s when they allowed smoke inside, and just those kinds of things. I'm just being silly.
To try to find where she is. My only goal, which I told you the other day, is to make sure that she's safe. I don't want you to get tied into something if you didn't do anything wrong. My job is not to jam somebody up for something that they didn't do wrong. And if you can tell me that you didn't do anything wrong, then I want to believe you, because, dude, I've met you now a few times. I helped you out when you were at the hospital when you were having a meltdown. You told me about your kids. I sat there and I talked to you. Dude, I could taste you right there, and I didn't do that because...
So now this cop is trying to build a rapport with him, or reminding him of how he helped him out. Googling pedantic. I was called pedantic by my boss at Apple. There was I was given the nickname Inkhorn. It means that you focus on the weeds, you get caught up in the little things. Little things like, ew, are you allowed? It's kind of like, it's almost like being a Karen. It's kind of like being a Karen, but without all of the righteous shouting, screaming indignation. But so it's just me pointing out that you rarely see people smoking indoors these days. Nowadays you only see it in old movies or in historical movies. Picking at little things. And it is something that I have learned over the years not to do as much in terms of, day-to-day living, is picking at the little things and, kind of bypassing the little things of life. But I still have it in me. Which is why I noticed the smoking inside. But I get it. I do get why they're doing it. They're like, they're accommodating him. They're not only accommodating him physically, they're accommodating his ego by saying, hey, look at what we've done for you, man. We've been there for you. We were there for you when you were having a meltdown, and when you were losing your shit and talking about your kids, and we were going to tase you, but we didn't, and all that type of stuff. So anyway, let's keep going here.
I saw deep down inside that you were hurting and that I wanted to help you. Right now, all I'm trying to do is help your daughter. I want to bring her home, and I can't do that without your help. Dude, I can't do that without your help. Hey, can you look at me? Help me, please. That's all I'm asking for. I can't sleep until I know that she's okay. And I know that you know where she is or what happened to her, but I can't do it without your help. And if you don't want to look like an animal, because I don't think you are.
Look how he's appearing to be under torture as he's being asked where his daughter is. Yep, he is a master manipulator. And so cops become manipulators in turn to manipulate the manipulators. It's crazy.
Not that I don't think you are. I know you aren't. But I can only do so much for you, man. I know. I'm begging you to help me. Because as much as you're hurting inside, I'm also hurting inside. And I don't know how you can sleep at night, because I'm sure it's eating out of you. Am I wrong?
No, I'm seeing me and Pops. I know I'm not seeing my wife. I'm not seeing my kids. You guys are just playing games. Like, this is just...
Dude, but I'm not trying...
We're not trying to play games again.
Like,
telling my wife and kids that I'm not allowed to see my wife and kids. Like,
But dude, that was a mistake from some court paperwork that hadn't been updated. So like I said, I apologize for that.
it was updated. And DCYF told them.
No. This was some like DB paperwork I'm talking about.
But I'm talking about DCYF already told us multiple times that there was no contact order.
Maybe through DCYF, but
It could have been through DCYF.
Yeah.
So let's forget about it. You've seen your wife and kids over the last how many days, right?
I haven't seen them in the last. I haven't seen my kids in the last 2 days, 3 days.
Okay. You're always going to be their father.
That's it, guys.
Hey, can you make me a promise? Like, man.
Oh, it's easy to see what's going on with the genes now. They're holy. The genes are holy. They're probably dirty too, but they're ripped up and holy. That's what's going on there.
Man, can you tell me that she's alive?
You're gonna play the same word games that you played with me the other day.
It's not word games.
I got nothing.
I mean, that's a simple question. That is such a simple question. Can you tell me she's alive? Yes. I could tell you very easily, my children are alive. I know exactly where they are. I could pull them up they're both adult children, and I know exactly where they are at this moment in time. And he's like, "Oh, you're asking trick questions. Is my kid alive? That's a trick question, man."
That's what we care about. We want to know.
This isn't gonna go anywhere. Like, this isn't gonna stop. So
No, it's not.
So
So
either get on the bus now or get run over.
Well, I got nothing else to say.
Why is it you have so much trouble talking about harmony?
That's it.
And that's like a famous line that they pull out when they show this interrogation. Either get on the bus or get run over. And he's like, I got nothing else to say to you guys. I mean, what the fuck, man? That's your kid. That is your child you're talking about. It's right, KPM. It's dead simple. Oh yeah, she's alive. She's with her mom. I just talked to her yesterday. She's doing great. This is going on. That's going on. Everything's great. Hunky dory. No problem. I could tell you, the last time I talked to my kid, what he's doing. Lots of stuff. This is, any parent who really is involved with their child could do that. But right, the drugs were much more important. Exactly. Compare this to an attorney repeating, "Wake up, baby girl." Rather, really, I fucked up. That's right. Lori Vallow. "Oh, he's in Arizona with my friend Melanie." And Melanie's like, "What the fuck? You just threw me under the bus. He's not with me." "Oh, just take pictures of kids that are, kind of in the distance and say one of them is JJ and you went to the movies. Say that you took them to Frozen or something." These are children. Not, one-dimensional, pop-up standees that you pretend are people so that you can go have affairs with profits. Do you guys understand how insane this is? How insane these people are? Still no verdict. Hitting play.
I got nothing else to say. I want a lawyer with me.
magic words. I want a lawyer. That's the end of the police investigation. But the big question is, when will the jury see it, if ever? Let's bring back in attorney and former South Carolina prosecutor Tommy Pope and retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King. Tommy, let me start with you. Looking at this from your position of a former prosecutor, is there any reason that we may be missing as to why the state would not want to put this evidence in?
Yeah, that'll be a very, very interesting trial. Yeah, we were just about to watch that trial, Stacy, and then they went to a break. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I'm gonna switch to that when they start going because I'm very interested in that trial. I may not stream it every day, but I'm interested in it. You know what I'm interested in is let's watch. I'm kind of interested in watching the closing statements again from the parties yesterday, because I just want to try to figure out. There was such a stark difference to me. Hold on one moment. Okay, yeah. For anybody who missed the closing statements yesterday, let's watch those so you can see what the jury saw yesterday just before they started deliberating. Here we go.
Must be based and instructed that you could not consider any television, newspaper, online, or other coverage arrested. So it is. Wake up, baby girl. Baby girl, wake up. Those were the words that Kayla used to describe. And the defense, baby girl. Wake up, baby girl. Baby girl, wake up. Those were the words that Kayla used to describe how Adam approached his child when he discovered that she was dead. Kayla used words that were the truth sometimes to fill in her lies. Baby girl, wake up. Those words were from a real memory of how Adam was speaking when he discovered his daughter, looking peacefully asleep, would never wake up again. Wake up, baby girl. But she didn't. Those words were the truth surrounded by Kayla's lie. Adam is no innocent. Shortly after he discovered that his baby girl would not wake up again, he began a series of decisions, terrible and criminal decisions. He made them with a very misguided belief that he had to make them to keep his family from being ripped apart. And he made those decisions with the input and influence of his wife, Kayla. He did make those choices, and you will hold him accountable for those choices. He and Kayla hid, moved, lied, and manipulated Harmony's body after her death. It's unforgivable. They lied about her whereabouts after her death, and it's unforgivable. But he did not do this to hide that he killed Harmony, because he did not kill Harmony. He did this because he believed it would keep his family together. He did not witness tamper with Kayla. She was an instigator and equal partner. He did not influence her. She influenced him. And most importantly, he did not kill his daughter. He did not kill his baby girl. When Kayla was facing charges not related to Harmony's death, theft, and 2 charges of receiving stolen property, charges that could send her to prison for over a decade. And then, by her own actions, she was facing 2 more charges for perjury, for lying about Harmony's death. And she was subject to 2 more felonies. These felonies, 3.5 to 7 each, potential, stacked in prison. 3.5 to 7 plus 3.5 to 7, plus receiving stolen property times 2, plus theft. So Kayla decided to lie about Harmony's death, to accuse Adam of something that he did not do, to get herself out of her own problems. And what better way than to pick an accusation that had already been made? Adam was already arrested and in jail for an allegation of striking Harmony, a tale that he had struck her and given her black eyes. That became the groundwork for Kayla's own lies. She had to lie because the truth would point to her. And her lies were accepted because Adam had already been accused of causing Kayla black eyes. Her lie was easily accepted until you look past the horror of what she has said and past the emotion that would be the reaction when you heard her say it. When you look with a critical eye at those lies, you're going to see that they're lies intertwined with truth. Wake up, baby girl. The allegation that Adam beat his child for days and then on December 7th for hours is crazy. And I'm going to briefly go over that and the craziness of it as it got worse and worse with the telling. She told you a horrific story of Adam screaming and yelling and beating Harmony because when they woke up to go to the clinic, she had peed in the car, screaming and yelling at the Colonial Village at an hour that people might be going to work for rush hour, at a time that they should not have been there, and they were essentially squatting and not wanting to be noticed. Screaming and yelling and punching her in the head. And then they got to the methadone clinic, which was about 10 minutes away, at around 7 o'clock in the morning. Kayla got her dose at 7:04 when the clinic was open for people to get their doses. Her horrific story continued with Adam beating Harmony, she says, when he got out of the clinic, he at 7:09. She said he smelled urine and said, "Again, Harmony? Why don't you tell us?" And he began yelling and hitting her right in the head right there in front of the clinic. And you know that one time that they had done something wrong outside the clinic, They got told on. One time she told you they had left the kids in the car and gone into the clinic together with no one watching the kids, and they got told on. And they had to change their habit and go in one at a time so that somebody would always be out with the children. That would have been noticed outside the clinic at 7 a.m. when people are going in for their doses. She continued that horrific tale because she said, after witnessing these beatings, she said, "I'm hungry. Let's go to Burger King." And Adam drove to Burger King. And on the way, she said Harmony was crying a lot and making a weird noise. And Adam got really angry and kept punching her and said, "Shut the fuck up." And then he hit her at the traffic lights. 2, maybe 3 traffic lights, she said, coming over the seat and pummeling her in the back. Not in secret, not hidden, broad daylight on a busy street with busy traffic stopped at a stoplight. And then she said, effort to try and stop those horrific acts beforehand. No effort going to do. And this problem at the intersection, we can get over it. Keep your cool. She said, Adam said,
I'm
"What
fast
do we
forwarding
do?"
through part of
And
hers
she said,
because
"Let's go to
she
Badero."
just really details what
And
we
they
already
grabbed
know,
what they
a lot of
could,
it,
and they went
just
to
does it in such a
Badero's.
monotone voice.
Asked about other tools. Then you heard from her mother, the supposed owner of that fuel grinder. Nope, never had a fuel
So
grinder.
much time
I have
on
plenty
the
of tools.
power tools.
I do. And Adam in the car. Harmony was not hidden from whoever babysat her. Kayla couldn't remember, couldn't tell you. But it could have been Tabitha. It could have been her mother. She didn't remember, but whoever that babysat. I haven't talked about the second degree assault case at almost at all, I don't think. Kevin made the accusation. You watched. He was in a fight with Adam between Kayla and Kevin. You've heard the fight was about money as well as Kayla's black eye.
Let's see let's jump to her
What'd he say,
close,
a
the
week
close of
later,
her
maybe 10
closing to
days later,
see
he
how
called,
she ends.
DCYF. Well, that was investigated. Mr. Tsaros came out. Adam not guilty. That is your test. And this verdict could be easy and it could be quick if you rely on emotion, if you rely on anger, if you rely on horror, because what Adam did, what he did do to Harmony's body after she died is horrific. What he did do by allowing that entire investigation to go for so long can make you very, very angry. And if you decide this case based on your emotions, it can be a quick verdict because none of those emotions will be positive. But if you take the time, you take a breath, and you go through the evidence piece by piece, evaluate, talk to each other. What do you think about her testimony? Some of you will remember things different from others. Talk it out. Talk it out? What is missing? Because those emotions are there. If you do that, if you put it aside, you will find that Adam is not guilty of murdering his daughter. He did not do that. And he's not guilty of witness tampering. He didn't influence her testimony to hide hers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
So lackluster.
what we're going to do now is we'll take a 15-minute break. So
Morning again, everyone. I want to thank you very much for the time that you have spent in this case, for a journey that we told you back before we took the view was going to be a journey that you weren't going to forget. It has been a long couple.
All right, the people in the Rust trial are back.
All right, we're on the record. The jurors are here. All jurors are here. Okay. And Court TV asked me to put on the record what they cannot show. And it's the first video?
Correct.
Okay. Where's Court TV? Anybody, a representative that I can focus on? All right. So do you have any, do you have any questions? Okay. Oh, Hannah, right?
this is Grace from Grace.
Oh, Grace. Okay, Grace, remember we talked?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one of those videos that we don't want to show. So it's going to be her first witness, and it'll be the first exhibit.
First exhibit, first witness. That's why we have multiple cameras, so we'll show anything but that video.
And not the jurors.
Not the jurors.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to call in the jurors.
So that's how things should be handled at court when there are cameras, is they should know what's coming and they should direct the pool camera as to where to point the camera and what not to show before it's shown. And that's not what happened with that one witness with Adam Montgomery. Still no verdict. Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye on the court feed in Adam Montgomery. Stacy, are you asking if Hannah's dad is there? I don't know. So with the Rust shooting trial, we're now waiting for the jury to come in. Apparently, the first exhibit that is going to be shown is obviously dramatic and graphic. It'll probably be the actual, remember, this incident took place on a movie set. She does clean up well. This incident took place on a movie set. Cameras were probably rolling. At least sound was rolling. Oh, Rockstar. That's right. I forgot. So Hannah comes from a legacy of armorers. And so it's, it'll be a stain on her legacy if she is convicted of this. There are allegations that she was too inexperienced to be in the position that she was. Allegations that she didn't follow protocol. There was also a strike on the set, a union strike on the set during that time. So everyone was overworked. Everyone on the set was overworked. They were all tired. So the working conditions were
All
bad.
right, maybe seated. All right, the matter I'm calling is State of New Mexico versus Hannah Gutierrez, D101CR 2023-40. Parties state their name.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jason Lewis and Karen Morrissey on behalf of New Mexico. Good morning, Your Honor. Jason Bowles, Carmela Cisneros, and Todd William are here for Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who is present.
All right, thank you very much. All right, jurors. So I, first of all, thank you for your patience. as they say, accidents happen. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to give you an explanation of trial procedure. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. And I already swore you in yesterday, okay? So where'd George go? Just going to tell you you've met my bailiff. There he is. Okay, yeah, do we need, yeah, we'll wait. Hello. You ready? Okay. Okay, so I called the case. So this is a criminal case commenced by the state charging the defendant with a third amended criminal information. I will read this to you to remind you of what the charges are. It sounds formal. Count 1, involuntary manslaughter in that on or about October 21, 2021 in Santa Fe County, New Mexico at the Bonanza Creek Ranch located at 545 Bonanza Creek Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87508. The above named defendant did cause the death of Helena Hutchins, committed in the commission of an unlawful act, to wit, negligent use of a deadly weapon. In the alternative, count 1, involuntary manslaughter, in that on or about October 21, 2021, in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, located at 545 Bonanza Creek Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87508. The above named defendant did cause the death of Helena Hutchins, committed in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death in an unlawful manner or without due caution or circumspection. Count 2, tampering with evidence, in that on or about October 21, 2021, in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, the above named defendant did transfer narcotics to another person with the intent to prevent the apprehension, prosecution, or conviction of herself and the, thank you. All right. So remember that Ms. Hannah Gutierrez is presumed innocent. The burden is on the state to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. I have some instructions to give you. These are instructions that you'll follow throughout the trial. First of all, one of the most important is all of you must pay close attention to the evidence. After you've read all of the evidence, I will read the final instructions of law to you. You will also receive a written copy of all instructions. You must follow the final instructions in deciding the case. Again, the trial is expected to last possibly through May 8th. And we're here every day except the weekends, 8:30 to 5, okay?
Through May 8th, wow.
We'll take a morning break. We'll take a lunch break. We'll take an afternoon break. Let's see. Please report to where you've reported today at 8:30 so we can start. If you know you might be late for some reason, please leave early. Do not come into the courtroom unless you are accompanied by George, my bailiff. You may take water into the courtroom with you, but no hot liquid or coffee. We stand up out of respect for you because you are the ultimate decision makers as to the facts in this particular case. So when you come into court, go ahead, be seated, and after all of you are seated, we will be seated. It is so important to hear. Do not miss one word. Raise your hand, don't wait, don't be shy, okay? This is a public proceeding, so people may go in and out. You may find yourself looking at who is going in and out, but after a while, I think you'll get used to it. However, if there is anything distracting you from being able to listen and be involved in the case, please tell George and he'll let me know. Really can't do anything about the temperature, so as I said, layers. You are allowed but not required to take notes during trial. George will hand you each a notepad and a pen or pencil.
Oh, they do get.
Please put your name on the
here.
front of the page, on the front of the pad, and then take notes beginning on the second page. On breaks, leave them on your chair or follow what George says, leave or take back to the jury room. He'll collect them at the end of the day, and in the morning he'll return them. Please don't worry about your notes being read by anyone. They're locked up at night, and then at the end of the trial, they're shredded immediately, okay? Don't let your notes take the place of your independent memory of the evidence. When taking notes, please don't forget to pay close attention to the witnesses during their testimony, because it will help you assess their appearance, behavior, memory, and whatever else bears on their credibility. Let's go through the order of trial for any of you that have not been through a criminal trial. A criminal trial generally begins with the lawyers telling you what they expect the evidence to show. This is called opening statements. These statements made by the lawyers during the course of trial can be of considerable assistance to you in understanding the evidence as it is presented at trial. Statements of the lawyers, however, are not themselves evidence. The evidence will be the testimony of the witnesses, exhibits, and any facts agreed to by the parties. After you have heard all of the evidence, I will then give you final instructions on the law. The lawyers will argue the case, that's called closing argument, and then you will retire to the jury room to arrive at a verdict. It is my duty to decide what evidence you may consider. Your job is to find and determine the facts in this case, which you must do solely upon the evidence received here in court. It is the duty of the lawyer to object to questions, testimony, or exhibits the lawyer believes may not be proper, and you must not hold such objection against the objecting party. I will sustain objections if the question or evidence sought is improper for you to consider. If I sustain an objection to evidence, you must not consider such evidence, nor may you consider any evidence that I have told you to disregard. By itself, a question is not evidence. You must not speculate about what would be the answer to a question that I rule cannot be answered. It is for you to decide whether the witnesses know what they are talking about and whether they are being truthful. You may give the testimony of any witness whatever weight you believe it merits. You may take into account, among other things, the witness's ability and opportunities to observe, memory, manner, or any bias or prejudice that the witness may have, and the reasonableness of the testimony considered in light of all of the evidence in the case. No ruling, gesture, or comment I make during the course of the trial should influence your decision in this case. At times, I may ask questions of witnesses. If I do, such questions do not in any way indicate my opinion about the facts or indicate the weight I feel you should give to the testimony of the witness. Questions by jurors. Ordinarily, the attorneys will develop all pertinent evidence. It is the exception rather than the rule that an individual juror will have an unanswered question after all of the evidence is presented. However, if you feel an important question has not been asked or answered, write it down on a piece of your note paper and give it to George before the witness leaves the stand. I will decide whether or when your question will be asked. Rules of evidence or other considerations apply to questions you submit and may prevent the question from being asked. If the question is not asked, please do not give it any further consideration, do not discuss it with the other jurors, and please do not hold it against either side that you did not get an answer. Conduct of jurors. You must again decide the case solely upon the evidence received in court. You must not consider anything you may have read or heard about the case outside the courtroom. During the trial and your deliberations, you must avoid news accounts of the trial, whether they be on radio, television, the internet, or in a newspaper or other written publication. You must not visit the scene of the incident on your own. You cannot make experiments with reference to this case. You cannot Google anything about this case, do any research about the subject matter of the case. And that would include anything regarding this, pre or current. If an exhibit is, this is very important, until you retire to deliberate the case. And that means after closing argument when you've received all the evidence. You must not discuss this case or the evidence with anyone, even with each other. So as I said yesterday, I'm sorry to harp, but this is so important. What I said yesterday was you cannot, while you're in that jury deliberation room, that is not a time for you to discuss the case while you're sitting around. No, it's, as I said, after all of the evidence, that'll be down the line, March 8th. And we send you off to deliberate. That's when you can discuss the case, when you're in deliberations, okay? Let's see. If an exhibit is admitted in evidence, you should examine it yourself and not talk about it with other jurors until you retire to deliberate. It is important that you keep an open mind and not decide any part of the case until the entire case has been completed and submitted to you. Your special responsibility as jurors demands that throughout this trial, you exercise your judgment impartially and without regard to any sympathy, bias, or prejudice. To minimize the risk of accidentally overhearing something that is not evidence in this case, please continue to wear the jurors' badges while in and around the courthouse. If someone happens to discuss the case in your presence, report that fact to George immediately. Although it is natural to visit with people you meet, please do not talk with any of the attorneys, parties, witnesses, or spectators either in or out of the courtroom. If you meet in the hallways or elevators or elsewhere, there is nothing wrong with saying a good morning or a good afternoon, but your conversation should end there. If the attorneys, parties, and witnesses do not greet you outside of the courtroom or avoid riding in the same elevator with you, they are not being rude. They are just carefully observing this rule, and they definitely wanted me to tell you that so that you don't think they're being rude. Okay. All right. So we'll do the exclusion rule.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and we will begin the evidence. Not the evidence.
Can we approach just
Yes.
about the rule of exclusion?
I just put up a little bit of information on the screen, and I'm about to put up some more about the charges. We still do not have a verdict in the Adam Montgomery case trial. I've been doggedly looking at this screen over the. Uh-oh, I see a little camera movement, but that happens all the time. Little camera movement doesn't mean anything. But I'm keeping an eye over there. I'm keeping an eye over there. So, her function as an Armor on the Rust movie set was to ensure gun safety. Her reckless failure resulted in the senseless death of another human being. She has pleaded not guilty, and her lawyers have argued that she's been made the scapegoat of a tragic accident. They blamed someone else for the appearance of live rounds on the set and charged that production cut corners on safety in an effort to reduce cost, including by overburdening Ms. Gutierrez-Reed with 2 jobs that prevented her from being able to fully focus on her job. Yeah. So her appearance is definitely different here. She's definitely taken
Poker
the
faces,
advice.
but I said May 8th. I meant March 8th. Okay.
There's movement.
Panic there, but nobody showed their panic. All right, so March 8th. Okay, now I'm going to remind, you will hear this, it will sound, there's going to be 2 things that sound like a broken record. And one is, every time we take a break or whatever, do not talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Very important. The other thing is, because we are doing court TV, I don't know if you all know that, and by the way, they're not filming you. They're not allowed to film you. So don't worry about that. And then because you're wearing your juror badges, they will know to leave you alone in and around the courthouse and lunch and everything, whatever. Okay. Now, I will be saying a lot that the witnesses may not be watching the live stream court TV. That's important to, so that they're not hearing the evidence. That's what they just asked me to do. So that will come whenever I think of it, because as they pointed out, a witness may get on the
Okay, there is a question in the Montgomery case. So we're going to the other courtroom to listen to the question. This is, my understanding is this is not a verdict, this is a question. And that's why people in the room look so, relaxed, not tense. As you can see, the opposing counsel, they're having what looks like a rather jovial conversation. Friendly, not contentious. Interesting. Meanwhile, what we want is justice for Harmony. So it is interesting. So we're like 5 hours into deliberation and we have a question, or maybe several questions, not sure. Oh, Johnny, most of the time, people in the lawyer community in local, who work in the same town, they know each other. I was married to a lawyer for many years, and he became friends with opposing counsel all the time. So that's a very, very, very normal thing. Very normal thing. There's nothing wrong with it. And there's nothing untoward about it until until something. Oh yeah, they go out for drinks all the time. They hire each other, that's where they find new recruits for their new law firms. People change sides all the time. They go from being defense attorneys to prosecutors and vice versa. It happens in the news as well. People think that different news stations are bitter rivals. Most of the time they're friends and they all go out together. No, it's not like they don't talk about the cases. They don't coordinate their strategies on cases. They become friends outside of the cases that they work on. And it also it actually becomes better for their respective clients, because it's easier to get flies with honey than with vinegar. So you can develop a better working relationship and come to an agreement faster. Yeah. So, and the same goes with, like I said, news organizations. They share resources all the time. Like, for instance, these people who cover the trials, a lot of times there's only one camera that gets to go into the courtroom. So they all have to pool together and share resources. They have to cooperate with each other for the greater good. Right. So a lot of the news organizations and the people who work in them, they all become friends. If you're just joining us, there appears to be a question. This is not the verdict. There just appears to be a question. Johnny, I think the answer to that question would be if they were caught during the trial drunk together, not necessarily well before or well after, but during the trial. Timing means a lot. Let me make sure I have the sound on? Yep, I have the sound on. All right, let's see what's going on here. There's Adam's empty chair. Even to expound on what I was just saying a little bit. Yep, the placeholder chair. Even to expound what I was saying a little bit. So in the news business, reporters are assigned specific beats. Business reporters, yeah, exactly, in general is frowned upon being drunk during a trial. You really don't have time to get drunk during a trial. Let me just say that. When you're in trial and you're a lawyer, you're getting 1 hour of sleep a night if you're lucky. If you're lucky. So there's that. So when you're a business reporter or any kind of reporter, you're assigned a specific beat. So for instance, if you're a technology business reporter and you're assigned the Apple beat, you might become friends with all the Apple beat reporters at the different newspapers. Because and you aren't necessarily going to tell who your sources are because you don't want to give your sources to your competition. But you might compare notes and compare information to make sure that you're not being led astray by, the company or the people that you're talking to. So a lot of people think that a lot of people think that the different reporters at the different papers would be cutthroat against each other. Really, they're cutthroat against each other internally at the papers. Because they're all trying to get each other's jobs internally. That makes sense. Yeah, it's networking. And let's face it, they all sit around and they gossip about which PR person is better than the other PR person. And I was a popular PR person. Right. Cutie Pie, they kind of remind me of the movie Twins. I know, Pointer Lover. That'll be really disappointing. Yeah, he probably has a whole other climate up there, right? mean, he's going to be found guilty of at least. There's not a verdict. If you're just coming in, there is not a verdict. There is a question, at least from what we're hearing. This is what I'm getting on the. This is what I'm getting on the artist formerly known as Twitter. That there's a question. But they're, everybody's taking their damn time coming in to get it. Yeah, I mean, that's the only way I can think to say it with any self-respect, Million Sparkles, because I cannot believe they made such a dumb move as to call it X. I mean, it's so ridiculous to me. As a marketer, I find it offensive. I just find, okay, and now they're having a sidebar. Shall we have a little fun with sidebars? Fun with sidebars. Hail to the empty chair.
Your Honor, I would like to sidebar here. Is this, Your Honor, sidebar?
There's no jury here.
Okay, well, that's
so
me.
You do a sidebar to keep a jury from hearing things, but there's no jury here. So
okay, then
if you have an objection, make an objection.
But then she attacks his girlfriend.
Someone puts a dick pussy, dick pussy, dick pussy, dick pussy, going back and forth between texts with one another, but I never want to hear it again.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification. Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification. Okay, perfect. Yes. Okay, perfect.
Oh, these people. Perfect. Oh, these people. Yeah, I need to do a getting there compilation. I don't think I've done that yet. Oh, looks like they're finally coming back. And it appears we are standing for the jury. Exactly, KPM. Oh my gosh. Colossal. Someone should do the calculation on that, or maybe we get too angry. Yeah, her faces during that were golden. Now they're sending people out again. So did they get... No, we do not have a verdict. My understanding is there was a question. There was a question by the jury, but it doesn't sound like we get to hear what the question was, which totally blows. Is absolutely ridiculous. And now they're just having jovial conversation. What is happening? Why do they look so happy and light on their feet? I'm going to look on some news sources. Okay, now they're going back to the... Yeah, why do they look so damn happy? All right, I'm switching back over to Rust, and then I'm going to look and see what on the news sources what happened.
Are inside the gun. And the armorer is also supposed to offer the actor who is receiving the gun the opportunity to also have the gun inspected in front of them. Unfortunately, in this case, Ms. Gutierrez did not always adhere to these safety procedures, and you're going to hear from several witnesses who will testify that she often rushed through this critical step and sometimes she skipped this check altogether. So let's turn to what happened on October 21st, 2021. The cast and crew of the Rust film were out at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, which is a ranch located just outside the city limits of Santa Fe. It's several thousand acres large, and it has an Old West style town that's built there, and often movies are filmed there. And I've got an example photo here just to kind of give you an idea of what the set looks like. It's nothing particularly fancy. It's just an Old West looking town. Part of the set, and this is located a little bit a ways from the town itself, is this church. And it was at this church that the incident resulting in Miss Hutchins' death occurred. The evidence is going to show that on October 21st, it was a fairly chaotic day on the set of the movie. The evening before, a group of camera operators who had some concerns about various safety issues on set sent an email to the production team indicating that they were going to be quitting. And so the next day, in response to this notice, the producers decided to push ahead with filming anyway, and they decided to use less camera equipment than what was normally used, and they tried to just improvise and make do with what they had. Filming on the morning of the 21st was largely uneventful. The cast and crew filmed several scenes without any particular incidents occurring. Leading up to the lunch hour, a small group of cast and crew were inside the church working on getting some close-up shots of Alec Baldwin sitting on a church pew and manipulating his revolver. That scene was completed just before lunch, and so they called for a lunch break. And let me back up just a little bit. Before the lunch break was called, I want you all to see what was going on. This is so that gives you an idea of what was going on that morning. Alec Baldwin was sitting on a church pew, and he was practicing this draw from his holster with the camera crew kind of close up on top of him. So they completed that scene, and they called for the lunch hour to occur. So during the lunch hour, Ms. Gutierrez took the gun from Mr. Baldwin, and she took it back to the safe, the gun safe that was loaded on a prop cart. Once lunch was over, the production decided that they wanted to continue working inside of the church. But at this point, they weren't actually filming anything like they were in this video that I just showed you. And instead, they were doing what's called a blocking. And that is, in film terms, what you do before you even get to a rehearsal. So it's like a very rough rehearsal where the lighting director, the camera operator, and all of the folks are trying to get things situated so that they can then move into a rehearsal. Whenever a blocking is going on, because they aren't filming, there's really no need for the actor to have a live firearm in their hands, or even for the live firearm to be on set. You're going to hear from several witnesses, or from one witness in particular, who's going to testify that for purposes of blocking, Mr. Baldwin could have been using a stick, a rubber gun, anything that would essentially allow him to mimic a gun. It didn't have to be a live firearm. On that day, though, the defendant was asked to provide Mr. Baldwin with a live firearm for the blocking, and she did, and that was within her discretion to do so. You're going to hear that on the day of the shooting, Ms. Gutierrez loaded the gun in the morning with 5 rounds. The revolver, though, is a 6-shooter, so it can hold 6 rounds, but in that morning, she only was able to load 5 of them. After the lunch break was over, Ms. Gutierrez retrieved the gun from the safe, and she cleaned that 6th hole and was able to put a 6th round into the 6th slot. Ms. Gutierrez then took the firearm to the church and handed the gun over to the first
This
assistant
is what she
director,
looked like
whose
the day
name
of
is
the
Dave
shooting.
Halls. Ms. Gutierrez and Mr. Halls then did a sloppy and incomplete safety check of the gun, where the dummy rounds were not removed from the gun and rattled or checked to see if they had a hole drilled in it. Instead, she just kind of cracked open the gun and partially spun the cylinder to show Mr. Halls a few of the rounds, but they were not removed from the gun and they weren't all checked. After the incident happened, and when Ms. Gutierrez was being interviewed by the investigating officers, she stated that when she removed the gun from the safe to begin the filming for the afternoon session, she didn't recheck the ammunition. So when she pulled the gun out and put the 6th bullet in, she didn't independently check the rounds at that time either. Our witnesses are going to testify that when the defendant pulled the gun out of the safe after lunch, what she should have done was open the gun and independently herself checked each and every round. Then, when she took it to the church and handed it to Mr. Halls, she should have done a second complete ammo check with Mr. Halls, because this double redundancy is what helps prevent the kind of incidents that occurred to Miss Hutchins from happening. This means she should have opened the gun, removed each cartridge, confirmed that they were dummy rounds by individually shaking them, rattling them, or seeing the bored hole. And because these dummy rounds are so similar to live rounds, her decision to just crack it open and spin the cylinder a little bit to look at the head stamps wasn't enough. She needed to do a much more complete check. So having failed to do that check herself, she then handed the firearm to Mr. Halls anyway. She exited the church, and then Mr. Halls handed the firearm to Mr. Baldwin. As the blocking session was underway, Miss Hutchins and several of her crewmates were busily working, looking through and adjusting cameras, and Mr. Baldwin was sitting on that church pew, practicing how he would hold the gun for the upcoming filming session. As Mr. Baldwin was manipulating the firearm, he caused it to discharge, and that unfortunately sent a projectile flying directly at Miss Hutchins.
I think that's one of her
The
lawyers.
projectile shot completely through Miss Hutchins and then struck the film's director, Joel Souza, in the shoulder.
This is the victim who died. Elena
So at
Hutchins,
this
the
point,
cinematographer.
the set paramedic was called into the church and began life-saving efforts on both Miss Hutchins and Mr. Souza. Another crew member who was in the church called 911 to report the shooting and to seek additional medical assistance. But because of the ranch's remote location, it took some time before additional medical personnel arrived. And this additional support also included a life flight helicopter for Miss Hutchins. A team of medical personnel worked to stabilize her, and they placed her on the life flight to UNMH. But sadly, the personnel at UNMH were unable to overcome the injuries that she sustained, and she was pronounced deceased at UNMH. We will show you, ladies and gentlemen, but that by failing to make those vital safety checks, the defendant acted negligently and without due caution, and that the decisions she made that day ultimately contributed to Ms. Hutchins' death. So that's what happened on the 21st. But now I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened leading up to the 21st. There are some other ways that Ms. that Ms. Gutierrez was negligent on the set. We intend to call several witnesses to give testimony that she regularly failed to properly carry out her duties as an armorer. These witnesses are going to describe the defendant's conduct as unprofessional and sloppy. You will hear testimony that she routinely left guns and ammunition lying around the set unattended, and that her gun safe and ammo cart were constantly disorganized. The second question that we want to answer for you is where these live bullets came from. The prospect of live ammunition landing up on a film set is incomprehensible. It's something that should never happen. It's a hard and fast industry rule that live ammunition should be miles away from a film set at all times because of the risk that it poses for being confused with the dummy rounds that are used on the set. I'm showing you a picture now of a box of ammunition that Ms. Gutierrez says she was pulling cartridges from and loading into Mr. Baldwin's firearm on the day the fatal shooting occurred. If you can see the arrow that I'm kind of wiggling around here, this is the box of ammunition that she was pulling from. This is a box of dummies. This second box here is a box of blanks. So these are the kind of rounds that will pop and create smoke. These are the type of rounds that are just supposed to be completely inert. When the officers arrived on the set after the shooting, this cart is where those two boxes of ammunition were first found. When the officer who was in charge of this prop cart uncovered that the boxes on there were the ones that were being used for that day's filming, he then placed them into his police unit, and that's what you saw in those previous slides. These are the boxes of ammunition inside of a cop car. Eventually, the box of dummies was taken back to the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office, where it was inventoried and photographed by a crime scene technician whose name is Marissa Popple, and she's going to be a witness in this case. The first box of dummies that was opened up is what is on your monitors right now. This is a styrofoam container that has approximately 37 cartridges in it. According to the label on the outside of the box, these are supposed to be dummy cartridges. And I don't know if you've noticed yet, but there is one of these cartridges that doesn't look like the others. It's that one with the red square. You can see that it has a silver primer, whereas all of the other ones have brass primers. The cartridge in that red box is a live bullet. So this was another live bullet that was found on the set, not just the one that was in Mr. Baldwin's firearm. Ultimately, you're going to hear from us that there were not just these two, but a total of 6 live bullets that were found on the set. 6. You're also going to hear that all 6 of those live rounds have the same, have common characteristics of having this silver or nickel covered primer, a shiny brass casing, and what's called a Starline brass head stamp. I don't know if you can tell in your monitors or not, but this impression that is on each of these cartridges, it looks like a star and then a line and a star. That indicates that it's a Starline brass manufactured casing. So we knew from the evidence gathered on October 21st, and when we had these rounds examined by the FBI, we discovered that there were actually those 6 live rounds on set. And so our next step was to determine whether there was any way, if we could tell when those live rounds ended up on the set. So we began to comb through all of the photos and videos that had been recorded on the set from the very first day the filming began. And we started to notice something. We were able to identify several points in time where the cartridges with a silver primer and a shiny brass cartridge ended up being spotted inside of the gun belts and bandoliers that the cast members were wearing on the set. In fact, we found a photograph where there was one occasion where a live round was sitting right on Miss Gutierrez's lap, and she failed to identify it. What you're looking at now is a photograph of Miss Gutierrez, and on her lap in the lower right-hand corner, you can see that styrofoam casing holder. I'm going to show you a call out that's been enhanced a little bit. And you can see, I hope you can see on your monitors, that these bullets here kind of on the top right appear to have a brass casing, but at least these other 2 bullets, most definitely this cartridge that's in the blue circle, you can see that there is a silver primer on that cartridge. And we believe that was a live bullet sitting on her lap, and she failed to identify it. It's important that you know that this photograph was taken on October 10th. And the reason it's important for you to make note that this photograph was taken on October 10th is because the other dummy rounds that were purchased for this movie didn't even arrive to the set until October 12th. So this means that the live ammunition could not have been from the shipment that came in on October 12th and that belonged or that was supplied by somebody other than Ms. Gutierrez. This also will help you when you hear from the defendant's counsel, who are likely going to suggest to you that there was some kind of sabotage on afoot on the set, or that the live rounds came from someone other than Ms. Gutierrez. This photograph, we think, will help you conclude that the live rounds were on set on the 10th, and that the other dummy rounds didn't arrive until the 12th. We also have a little bit more evidence that these live rounds came onto the set via the defendant when she came to New Mexico from out of state. As you can see from this photo, this is the box of rounds. This is kind of a blown up photograph of the box of rounds that she was pulling from on the day of the shooting. And you can see that it has a very specific label on it. It says 45 long Colt dummies. And then in much smaller print there in the middle, you can see the initials JS. So on November 9th, a couple of weeks after the shooting, the defendant came into the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office for an interview with Corporal Hancock, and she was asked questions about the box of ammunition she was pulling from the day of the incident, this box with the small JS on the label. The defendant told Corporal Hancock that she thought this box was kind of peculiar and she wasn't certain where it came from, but she said that she didn't believe it was one of the boxes that was originally brought on set. But then the defendant offered to Corporal Hancock that the day prior to the interview, she had asked her father back home to text her a photograph of the box of 45 long Colt dummies that they had at his home. And she texted him, and he texted her this photo in response. It's identical. It's the same box. The box of dummies she was pulling from on the 21st is identical to the box of dummies that her father had at home. So we believe this is more evidence that this box of dummies with the live round in it came from the defendant. We're also going to show you how these live rounds slowly spread their way throughout the set, eventually landing in several of the actors' costumes and firearms on October 13th, 15th, 17th, and of course on the 21st. In the image on your screen now, you can see in the large photograph, that's the bandolier that Mr. Baldwin was wearing on the 21st. There is a live round inside of that bandolier. The black belt that's in the lower right-hand corner is a belt that was worn by another cast member. There's a live round in that belt too. The evidence you're going to hear throughout this trial is that the defendant was unprofessional and that she failed to do the essential safety functions of her job, and that these failures resulted in live ammunition being spread throughout this entire set. Once the live ammunition was on the set, she failed to detect it because she didn't follow those essential safety protocols that required her to inspect every round before they were placed into the gun. The evidence will show that the defendant treated the safety protocols as if they were optional, rather than if people's lives counted on her doing her job correctly. We will show you that as a direct result of her failures, Ms. Gutierrez caused Ms. Hutchins' death. The last, or I should say the second crime that Ms. Gutierrez has been charged with is tampering with evidence. The evidence with regard to this charge is a lot simpler. You're going to hear testimony that on the day that Ms. Hutchins was killed, and after the defendant left her interview at the sheriff's office, she went back to her hotel. Knowing that the defendant had probably been through a lot that day, one of her crewmates went to her room to check on her to see how she was doing. And after they were done visiting, the crew member got up to leave, and as she was walking out of the room, the defendant handed her something and asked her to hang on to it for her. At first, this crew member didn't really realize what she had been handed, so she walked out of the room, started down the hallway, and when she looked into her hand, she realized she had been handed a baggie of suspected cocaine from the defendant. She will testify that she was surprised that the defendant, who was somebody she hardly knew, would hand her a bag of suspected cocaine to hang on to for her. The crew member is going to testify that she disposed of the cocaine. She didn't want to be caught with it, so she just threw it away. And you're going to hear that the defendant, over the next several weeks, texted this crew member several times asking her to return her stuff, which the crew member is going to testify is in reference to the baggie of cocaine. I know I've gone through a lot of information with you guys, and I hope you're not too overwhelmed, but that's why we're going to spend the next couple of weeks with you going over all of this evidence in a lot more detail. You're going to hear from a multitude of law enforcement officers. You're going to hear from firearms experts. You're going to hear from 4 FBI analysts covering the topics of fingerprints, DNA, explosives comparisons, and firearms testing. You're going to hear from an image enhancement expert. And most importantly, you're going to hear from witnesses who worked with Ms. Gutierrez every day on the movie set, including the film's director and several of the crew members who were inside the church on the day of this horrific incident. We're confident that after you hear from these witnesses and after you have an opportunity to look at the evidence for yourself in greater detail, you will agree with us that the defendant's actions were not only negligent on October 21st, but on many days leading up to the 21st. We hope that after you review this information, you will find her guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And after reviewing and hearing from the witness concerning the tampering charge, we believe that you will also convict her on the tampering with evidence charge as well. I'm about done, but I do want to leave you with one final statement. And this is a statement that Ms. Gutierrez made when she was being interviewed on the day of the shooting. She says at the end, I don't know. I wish I would have checked it more. And so do we. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Before we take yours, I think we'll take a bathroom break, okay? So please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. So go ahead, George, stand.
All rise.
All right, they are taking a bathroom break. That was definitely a lackluster opening statement. I think he probably was just gunning for the facts. I don't think we know how the rounds got onto the set. I think that is the big mystery of how the rounds actually got onto the set. So I've been screenshotting some of the things that I found on the artist formerly known as X about the jury question in Adam Montgomery. They are not back yet. Just letting you know, they're probably at lunch. Hopefully, our intuition is right that they are going to come back after lunch and deliver a verdict, but we shall see. So the jury has been given the legal definition of the mental state recklessly. You must use the definition provided. You should use your common sense in judgment and consider the ordinary usage of the terms within the definition. So, still no verdict. So the case I was just showing is the case in New Mexico. It's New Mexico versus Hannah Gutierrez. And interesting where they've decided to point the camera there at the exit sign. And we are still waiting for a verdict in the Adam Montgomery trial. I'm looking at the artist formerly known as Twitter for updates. There's also WMUR also has a web page where they're updating semi-frequently. And Amy Covino wrote at 12:19 p.m., so roughly 10 minutes ago, regarding the jury question on page 12 of the jury instructions, under the second-degree murder charge, it says the defendant consciously disregarded the risk. Sorry, I was muted and I was talking. So the question from the jury was, how does the court define consciously disregarded? And the answer is, the jury has been given the legal definition of the mental state recklessly. You must use the definition provided. You should use your common sense in judgment and consider the ordinary usage of the terms within the definition. No additional instruction on this will be provided. So I've noticed this a lot in these jury questions that come back. Is the jury wants more definition and instruction, and the judge and the court wants the jury to use more of their thinking and wants them to doesn't want to be more specific and wants the jury to use more of their common sense. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to watch that dynamic take place. So the jury's like, can you tell us what recklessly disregarded means? And they're like, we've given you the definition of recklessly. Now use your common sense. So anyway, those are the updates from WMUR and Twitter. So hopefully what our suspicion is correct, that the jury has taken a lunch break. They asked that question to make sure they were correct. They have made their decisions. They're just getting a nice bite to eat, on the court's dime, and they will come back. They will come back and give their decision and go home. Let's hope that's the situation. Bye, Bogart. Have a great rest of your day in beautiful Northern California. So Janessa asks, should we be worried that they're taking this long, or is just I would say you should only be worried if you're tied to a specific, if you're tied to thinking that quick verdicts come back and you want him to be guilty. I actually appreciate that they're taking their time and they want to be careful. Yeah, I would. Yes, they are. You could bet that they are on a lunch break, Johnny, because it is 12 o'clock there. They've been taking religious lunch breaks at 12 o'clock. They definitely stick to a time clock there. And they have been taking lunch breaks. And that particular judge has been extremely accommodating. That's totally up to you, Johnny, whether you can go or you cannot. The trial we're watching right now in New Mexico is on a bathroom break. So in the Adam Montgomery trial, they are taking a lunch break and then going back to deliberations, or they'll come back and give a verdict. But we don't know. We can't bank on that. In the New Mexico trial that we're watching, in the Rust movie shooting, they're taking a bathroom break. Yes, they have bathroom breaks. And they will be back probably sooner than the Adam Montgomery trial. So that's why I'm I'm pointing the camera at that trial right now and wrapping until they come back. And, some of the conversation in chat might be a little confusing because some people are talking about one trial and some people are talking about another trial. And also earlier, we watched a couple other hearings. We watched the James Crumbley hearing about the witnesses that may appear in his trial. And we watched Lori Vallow acting like she's some sort of Kardashian, reality TV star, all dressed up in her oranges for her appearance in Arizona for her new murder trial. Murder and attempted murder. These people, these crazy murderers, and how they show up. Like this guy, Adam. This guy, Adam, who walks into court looking like this during jury selection. Hey, I'm here, everybody. You're going to find me not guilty. I can tell you right now, you're going to find me not guilty of murdering my beautiful daughter. My beautiful daughter. Look how happy we were. We were so happy. We were just a happy family. Oops. But I know you're going to find me not guilty. And then he doesn't even show up. These people. These freaking people and how they show up to court. And then you have, there's some movement in New Mexico. And then you have bozos like this.
Hi, Lynn.
Because I'm going to beat every single one of you guys in court. It's going to happen. And guess what? I'm doing it pro se. And I'm going to love every single minute of it.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Let's stop saying we're gonna get there and just get there.
In March,
You got bozos like that. Bozos. Complete bozos. Who say one thing and then do a whole other thing. Where in Ohio is the jury trial? Same courthouse, Stacy. Same courthouse as, but different judge. Different judge. As the one we were just watching that we saw before.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Let's stop saying we're gonna get there and just get there.
In March of 2000, try to be classy for you, Miss Jade. All right, now, here we go. You just set up a record.
I don't understand, since both of you do true crime and you follow court, how either of you think this is proper.
Doing this right because it's mentally stressful, right? So
Then I would have to shut down the internet.
no, you're not going to shut down the internet because they can talk about me all they want. Oh, and I'm sorry. I can't go back.
It's not my fault that you forgot half your case.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault you forgot half your case. You dumbass. Grandma Cece, she ain't taking anybody. Ohio is taking her to court for telecommunications harassment and revenge prawn. Yeah. Against another YouTuber. Thank you, Tiggy Girl. So, in case you're just joining us, we still do not have a verdict in the Adam Montgomery trial. We have been watching New Mexico versus Hannah Gutierrez. That is the Rust movie shooting trial. We just watched the opening statements. Yeah, busy woman. We just watched the opening statements from the prosecutor. They were, I would say, factual, not very passionately delivered. Just pretty much delivered the facts of the case, which are, if they're going to be proven true, pretty damning, I would say. They claim that people will testify. They claim that, yeah, I would just be careful saying that publicly, Tess Mac, because I get watched like a hawk by Lana. And if the bigger creator starts covering her and you get targeted, you don't want to be targeted. I'm just saying. Just be careful. But I get what you're saying. Sorry, you guys. My dog this is his needy moment. And so whenever he gets needy, he starts putting his head on my computer. I have to keep pulling him off. Yes, my dog is Steve, and I apologize for not muting before I coughed. He won't cooperate on stage, unfortunately. So we still do not have a verdict. Here's a picture of Steve so you can see what kind of a dog I have. Coming right up. There's Steve. He's the cutest dog in the entire world. And he knows it. I just heard sobbing. Did you all hear that? There's like sobbing. Let me go back a little bit. Oh. It was just somebody clearing their throat like that. Like that. Yeah, he is fluffy and he is cute. He is so cute. It was just somebody clearing their throat. At first, I thought it was somebody sobbing, but it was just somebody clearing their throat. He does. He is, man, he's like a person to me. We have our own little language. Okay, so you tell me, who's cuter, Steve or Sally Jesse? Sally Jesse or Steve? He's even smiling in this picture. Sally Jesse or Steve? I say Steve.
All right.
A multi-poo. Wow, I've never heard of a multi-poo. He's a golden doodle, Tidy Girl. Yes, that's what I love about him the most is his eyes are super expressive.
You may be seated. Mr. Bowles?
Thank you, Your Honor.
This will be
Police
interesting.
support, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are privileged, our team, to represent Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who's sitting over here. And we're here because of a tragedy. There's no doubt. There was a tragic occurrence on that movie set. But let me tell you something you already know. Just because there was a tragedy does not mean that a crime was committed. It does not mean that Hannah Gutierrez Reed caused the crimes they have charged her with. And we are going to, through the course of this case, show you that production and the state have both very early on sought to make Hannah Gutierrez Reed a scapegoat. That's what this is about. You're going to hear that this tragedy, several unconnected events, independent events had to happen to create it. First, the first event that had to happen is the actor, Alec Baldwin, pointed a gun on that set, and he either had his finger on the trigger and the hammer cocked, or he pulled the trigger as he was pointing that at Miss Hutchins and Mr. Souza, who was right behind her. And make no mistake, this is not a prop gun. This is a real gun. Mr. Baldwin pointed it right at him, either had his finger on the trigger and depressed, or pulled it, causing that gun to fire and hit Miss Hutchins. That's the first thing that had to happen. Miss Gutierrez Reed, you're not going to hear anything about her being in that church or firing that weapon. That was Alec Baldwin. You will hear that Hollywood actors are not allowed to point guns, real guns, at other actors or crew. It's like every other safety with guns in any other place in society. You learn these rules and go into the classes. You learn these rules if you've ever owned a gun. Rule number one, never point a firearm at somebody unless you intend to shoot them. and that rule was broken. And that's going to be the first thing you're going to hear that caused this tragic accident. The second thing is that Hannah is being made a scapegoat for are deliberate errors and mistakes by production. So the opening, counsel for the state talked about Ms. Gutierrez-Reed and tried to put all of the onus on her. At the time, she was 24 years old. She had been hired for two duties, a props assistant, and you're going to hear what that is, and the armorer role, two different duties. So they were splitting her between those and making her, for example, roll cowboy cigarettes. That was one of them for the movie, and they had props that the actors have. And so she was having to do that to take away from her armorer duties. You're going to hear about that. Now, OSHA is a New Mexico agency, and that New Mexico agency inspected the movie and investigated this shooting after the shooting. You're going to hear that OSHA found fault with production. They found numerous faults, numerous mistakes on production's part, not Ms. Gutierrez-Reed on production. You're going to hear that OSHA indicated that there was a rush set, that there were several safety errors, and I'm going to talk about those in a moment, but I want to make that very clear. When the state talks about Ms. Gutierrez-Reed being negligent, what really happened is production was negligent. Production put her in that position. They put her in the position of having two jobs, a props assistant and an armorer, and expected a 24-year-old under really tough conditions to keep up with everything that was going on. And you're going to hear about that. You're going to hear that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed emailed the production manager, Gabrielle Pickle, who was on the set. You're going to hear Gabrielle Pickle. And she asked her for more armorer days. She said in this email, when I'm not able to focus on my armorer duties, this is when mistakes happen. And she was telling her this. Now, Ms. Pickle came back and said, no, we only have 8 armorer days, and that's all you're going to get. So out of the whole course of the movie, they didn't allow her to be an armorer and to perform those duties to the extent that she had to. And that's going to be a very important point too. They moved her between two different things, props assistant and armorer. Counsel for the state in his opening said that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed had the job of sourcing the ammo and sourcing the firearms on set. Now you're going to hear when you go through this about another name, and her name is Sarah Zachary. Sarah Zachary was the props head. So as the head of props department, she was Ms. Gutierrez-Reed's boss. In that role, Sarah Zachary had to source the ammunition and had to source the firearms. So that was not correct, what counsel stated in the opening. In reality, that was Sarah Zachary's job. Now you're going to hear that what happened is those two worked together in conjunction. Hannah was, Ms. Gutierrez-Reed was supposed to be doing armor, and then she was supposed to run over and help Sarah Zachary whenever she wanted the help on props. So a lot of what you're going to hear is a chaotic scene created by production and forcing somebody to do these two different roles. You're going to hear witnesses in this case, including professional armorer that the state has hired and other people that'll tell you it's completely inadvisable and a terrible decision on a movie like this with so many guns that you have a part-time armor. It just is not a good idea. And that's a terrible idea, but that's what they did. Now, as counsel stated, you will hear that this scene in the church was a blocking. It was a getting ready for a rehearsal. So you're going to hear that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed had brought the gun to Mr. Halls, that Mr. Halls never should have handled that weapon. And you're going to see he had a lot of experience in movies. He knew better. He had the weapon. He did not inspect that fully. And you're going to see that Mr. Baldwin didn't inspect it at all. So when counsel showed you that video on the first part of it, when he's sitting in that pew and doing that cross draw, you're going to hear about that. You're going to hear how dangerous a seated cross draw is. It's one of the more dangerous draws you can do because you're pulling the weapon across your body, and you can also pull it across other people. So you're going to hear that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed specifically requested to train Mr. Baldwin in a cross draw. You're also going to hear that he did not do that training. He did not set that training up. So when this tragic shooting occurred, it was in the very motion of a cross draw. You're also going to hear that this scene, this blocking, didn't even require him to draw that weapon. So it's just going to be an extreme close-up scene of his hand pulling out of his holster. And they were going to focus on that, create tension in the scene in the movie. Instead, for whatever reason, Mr. Baldwin pulled it out, and it ends up being pointed right at Ms. Hutchins, the camera, and Mr. Souza. You're also going to hear, we're going to talk about in the course of this case, there's Hollywood tricks. These guns should never be pointed at another person. That instead what should happen is there's camera tricks that you can use to make it look like it's pointed, but it's not. There's also things we're going to talk about that Mr. Baldwin did at that moment that he violated, and safety rules. Our gun and ammunition expert, Mr. Kuski, who you're going to hear from, is going to discuss safe gun handling and usage and go through safety bulletins. These safety bulletins apply on this set to movie actors, and he's going to talk about that. Second, let me talk about the live rounds. Now, the state has a relatively new theory, which is based totally on pictures. And you saw some of those pictures. And it's also based on the idea that live rounds have a silver primer on this set. So that's going to be the core of their argument and their theory. And you saw in the picture, one of them had a silver primer. And the primer is just that circle in the middle of the round on the back where the hammer hits, and that's what caused the round to fire. Now, what you didn't hear in state's opening was that there's going to be numerous dummy rounds that also have silver primers that were on this set. There was a FBI report you're going to see that a box removed from the prop truck had 16 silver primer dummies and 1 silver primer suspected live round. So this was a box found in the prop truck. So the theory that all the silver primer rounds are live is not correct. It's just not true. So you're going to hear during the course of this evidence, because of these silver primer dummies, that theory does not work. Second, you're going to hear that Russ Production ordered all the dummies on set. Russ Production sourced these primarily from a man named Seth Kinney. Seth Kinney owned PDQ Props. PDQ Props was the primary supplier to the Russ set. Now you're going to hear that after the shooting, Seth Kinney was extremely active in contacting the sheriffs and trying to work with them and trying to point the finger away from himself. And you're going to hear about that. You're also going to hear that Sarah Zachary, who I told you about earlier, after the shooting, she sent a text to Seth Kinney and it said emergency. Now, Sarah Zachary works for Seth Kinney and PDQ Props. She worked on set, but she was under him. She sent a text to Seth Kinney saying emergency. You're then going to hear that they had a phone call very shortly after. This is just minutes after the shooting. Sarah and Seth are talking on the phone. Now, we don't have that actual phone call, but whatever was said, here's what happened the very next thing. Sarah Zachary goes over and removes rounds from 2 of the weapons, 2 of the actors' guns, and she throws them away. Now, that's absolute and complete scene tampering. And when she first was interviewed by the sheriff, Sarah Zachary said, "I was panicked, and that's all I can tell you." Now, I expect in the course of this case, you're going to hear that when she was interviewed, she's going to say something like, "I threw them away because that's what we do after scenes." And you're going to get to evaluate her credibility and determine, why would these be thrown away? If they're dummy rounds, they're rounds that can be reused. They cost money. It doesn't make sense. You would just throw them away. And what was the real reason Sarah Zachary threw those rounds away right after her call with Seth Kenney? Now, you're also going to hear that right after the shooting, Sarah Zachary went over and she shook some rounds and determined that they didn't shake, meaning she felt like they were live rounds. So then she throws these away. Now, they're thrown in trash. She tells law enforcement, but on that day, they don't find them. But she threw them in trash right by the prop truck, you're going to hear, but they didn't find them. So we don't have those rounds. And you're not going to be able to hear this in the course of this case or see what Sarah Zachary threw away. You're not going to be able to have that because they were never recovered. That's scene tampering. You're also going to hear another instance of scene tampering, that Sarah Zachary carried items from the prop cart. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that prop cart. Right after the shooting, she carried items to the prop truck. So she moved items from the cart, knowing there had been a shooting, knowing law enforcement's going to be here, to the prop truck. So the other problem with the state's theory now, and showing you that picture of those boxes in Benavita's truck and how they were kept on the seat, is that we don't know what was taken from the cart completely. What we do know is that one box, Seth Kenney's box, appeared and was found in the prop truck. And we know that Sarah Zachary.
There is movement in the other courtroom. There is movement in the other courtroom. I'm going to look on the artist formerly known as Twitter right now. Solo Sock says she hears there's a verdict. I'm not. There is a verdict. Okay. All right. All right. Here's what I'm going to do, you guys. This is what I'm going to do. So that notifications are going out, I'm going to end this stream. I'm going to start a new stream right this moment. Okay. So, you did, KPM. You are absolutely right. So I'm going to end this stream and I'm going to start a new stream. I've already got it set up. So, be on the lookout. It's going to start momentarily and we will go right to it. See you soon.